all mini. So what are you waiting for? Put the pedal to the metal at Cincinnati Mini. I-71 North Exit 10 at Stewart Road or at CincinnatiMini.com. Let's Mini!
Consumer sentiment in a lot of big markets, including the U.S., continued to be subdued. And so there was some hesitation going in, although we kind of knew World Cup was going to give them a lift, and it did, a really nice lift. So it was a high-quality performance. It was very much volume-driven, wasn't so dependent on price as it had been in the past few quarters, and balance sheet got stronger. It was just hard to find any fault in this quarter.
I'm curious about the portfolio of drinks that Coca-Cola now has, because it's not just Coca-Cola or the slim version of it that Paul likes so much, but there's also sugar-free soda, sports drinks, water, because this younger generation seems to not like the sugary soft drinks as much as others in the past. What is the fastest growing part of that beverage portfolio, Ken?
That's a good question, Scarlett. Coke would say to that, part of the benefits of the FIFA World Cup sponsorship is that it gets them close to the consumer and it hears about trends, in real time, gives them a pulse of what's going on in the market. And so what they said today is look in the second half for Coke 0.0 to get a higher level of promotion. What is that? Well, their very successful Coke Zero, reformulated, is going to have a no caffeine version. That's not exactly novel to the soft drink industry, but it's been probably under-marketed, under-promoted for people like me. I can't drink caffeine after noon or I can't sleep. This is going to be kind of front and center for them in the second half. But to your point, Scarlett, functionality, getting more from your beverage than just hydration is still very key, in terms of consumer demand. They want more protein. Fairlife is a leader, and it was up 18% sales in the quarter. It's really strong numbers. Advanced hydration, that's Powerade. That's getting more marketing muscle now in the second half, so look out for more of that. And I'm sure the company has more innovation up its sleeve, didn't want to share today, but at least those three products, we can look for a higher level promotion in the second half.
Hey, so Ken, do investors and analysts, do they even look at market share anymore, Coke versus Pepsi, or is that just a thing of the past?
Oh, they certainly do. We get it here at Bloomberg Intelligence by virtue of Circana. Now, got to remember that, Circana, it's really predominantly a U.S. tracking. And Pepsi would argue, we're more than just soft drinks. PepsiCo, I think, has probably a wider portfolio of different categories than Coca-Cola does. Coke's still 75% sparkling, 75% brand Coca-Cola. But they're branching out, beyond that. But Pepsi would say, hey, be fair, we're more than just cola.
Yep.
But Coke is gaining share in virtually all of its categories.
Ken, we mentioned how the World Cup was definitely played a role here, but how does a company like Coca-Cola build on that momentum generated by the World Cup, which is, a one-time event as far as, earnings impact is concerned?
It is a one-time event, but Coke went out of its way to say this morning, look, the consumer engagement that we got from the World Cup, they had a lot of activities beyond that, innovative packaging. They had games and events outside the stadium going on. They had digital interactivity. They had a lot going on that they feel that there's going to be, benefits resonating beyond just the immediate. So we'll look for that, but like I said, Coke's engaged with its consumers, and I think that pays dividends.
All right, Ken, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Ken Shea, consumer products analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. You have a strong preference, Coke, Pepsi, or you're not?
I don't drink soda.
You don't drink soda?
Right. I will drink seltzer. So soda water.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't like the stuff that's like dark brown and got too much sugar.
Okay. JT?
Sprite.
Okay, that's a.
And by the way, just a fun fact: you can mix vodka and Fanta orange because we ran out of orange juice in Paris once, and
right,
had
and
vodka.
that did the trick.
Oh yeah, we called them Fatal Fantas. How's that for marketing?
There you go. Very good news you can use, presumably. S&P up 7 points. The Dow up 460. The Nasdaq down 110 points. We got more coming up. This is Bloomberg Intelligence. Good morning.
Today's AM radio is stale and repetitive.
Boston's Frog Pond Play Pool opens.
More pickleball courts in Peabody.
The truth behind Frankenfish.
Don't wait through boring and irrelevant topics on the AM dial. Listen to Bloomberg 92.9 for stories that matter.
Talking politics with our eye on the financial markets.
Plus, breaking global news with context.
These are the stories that shape the global economy.
Your best source for news on the FM dial. Bloomberg 92.9. Faster, smarter, better.
Data storage used to be straightforward, but AI has rewritten the rules. The data it needs to thrive is trapped in aging infrastructure. In fact, less than half of enterprises report that their data is AI ready. That makes initiatives stall before they start. Instead of fragmented systems, companies need a unified data platform, one intelligent layer that delivers data at the speed of AI. Because good enough isn't good enough in the AI era. Learn more at everpuredata.com.
And Doug. Limu and I created a trick to help you remember that you can customize your car insurance and save with Liberty Mutual. You see, the shirts Limu and I wear are yellow, and yellow is the color of lemons, and lemons grow on trees, and trees provide oxygen, and oxygen helps us breathe, and breathing is how you live, and you can live more life when you save money by customizing your car insurance. I agree, Limu. It's really quite simple. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Did you know that passive fixed income ETFs only capture about 50% of the U.S. public bond market? But with JP Morgan Asset Management's active fixed income ETFs, we can help you capture 100% of the U.S. public bond market and explore twice as many opportunities. Visit jpmorgan.com/getactive to learn more. JP Morgan Asset Management is the brand name for the asset management business of JP Morgan Chase & Co. and its affiliates worldwide. This communication is issued by JP Morgan Distribution Services Incorporated, member of FINRA.
Hi, how can I help? Well, my husband and I feel like we've outgrown our current money manager. I see. Our lives have changed, and we need something more than just mutual funds to help us in retirement.
She's right.
I hear that often. At Fisher Investments, we'd start by getting to know you, your finances, family, health, lifestyle. We tailor a portfolio around your goals and needs.
Sounds good.
Can you help with estate planning?
Yes. We have a team of specialists who can help you with estate planning, Social Security, investment income, and more. We'll get to know your whole financial picture and help keep you on the path to a comfortable retirement.
And your fees?
We have a simple, transparent fee that's a percentage of the value of your portfolio. So we do better when you do better.
I feel better already.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at fisherinvestments.com/different. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Partial sunshine continues across southern New England. There is the risk of a shower or a thunderstorm before the afternoon is over. We're 80 to 85. Scattered showers, thunderstorms tonight. There could be some heavy rain at times, 65 to 70. Showers, thunderstorms tomorrow. They could produce heavy rain. Highs only 70 to 75. Leftover showers and storms Thursday, 70 to 75. I'm Rob Carolyn with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker, the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. NASDAQ 100 falling for a fifth day. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, that is sinking 5%. Information technology, worst performing major industry group, home to the semiconductors. So that's the big story today. Where are investors going? Rotating into stuff like consumer staples and healthcare. Corning, the worst performing stock in the S&P 500. GLW, the ticker there for glassware, down 18%. Third quarter revenue guidance was just below expectations. This is kind of a derivative play on AI because they make, among other things, fiber optic cable. And the leader in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, paint, Sherwin-Williams. Those shares up close to 8%. Positive results for that company. Right now, the S&P 500 has turned higher, up 20 points, 74.33 on the index. The Dow Jones Industrial Average of 559 points, and the NASDAQ 100, 231 points lower. That is down 0.8%. But off the worst levels of the day. Love the story on the Bloomberg. So Cisco and Cisco, two different companies. One is the network services company. The other is the food services company. They've long been confused with each other because of their similar names. Employees of both companies have to explain to people they work at the company with a C or the S. So there was a recent meeting, and it happened that Cisco's chief people officer was there, and Cisco with an S, the global head of customer experience, he was there. This all led to a LinkedIn post. The two of them with their arms around each other. So now, because of this, the two companies say they may collaborate actually on a joint technology project. Cisco,
that's not going to be confusing.
Yeah, Cisco and Cisco getting together. Completely different areas, but anyway, it's a great read on the Bloomberg if you get the chance. We check the markets for you all day long right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That's your Bloomberg Business Flash. Scarlett and Paul.
All right, John Tucker, thank you so much. Appreciate that. It is Scarlett Fu and Paul Sweeney live here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, streaming live on YouTube as well. We have some earnings coming out of the payments and fintech space today, and break it down. We're going to go to Dick Shigera. She's a senior fintech and payments analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. She's out there in San Francisco. Dick, let's first talk about PayPal. I know they reported some numbers that beat estimates. We can talk about that. Talk to us about the strategic opportunities potentially for this company, because I'm not sure if it's in play or not in play, but people are interested in it. Talk to us about PayPal.
Yeah. Hi, Paul. Great to be here with you as always. I think the results beat was interesting. 9% adjusted EPS beat shows that the business is executing better than was feared in this tough environment. Volume was strong. Transaction margins were decent. Branded checkout growth also stabilized around 2%. And the company's reaffirmed its 1.5 billion savings target, and they've said about 400 million run rate savings by the end of the year. So things seem to be on track, but I think the key issue that remains with PayPal is the core profit driver, which is the branded PayPal button. That has seen single-digit growth, and the context around that is digital wallets like Apple Pay, like Shop Pay, card autofills are all capturing checkout mindshare. So I think the focus needs to shift. Whatever management does, those old days of milking the branded button are never going to come back. So they need to find alternative ways to monetize the network. And that said, the biggest catalyst for the stock right now is the Stripe and Adyen bid. They've made a $53 billion joint offer to acquire PayPal. The board officially hasn't responded to, but one way or the other, it forces the market to value this company appropriately now.
Do you expect the board to have any issues with this deal?
So here's the deal, right, Scarlett? Why does Stripe want PayPal? Stripe dominates the developer-first merchant-side payment infrastructure, but what it lacks is a two-sided consumer network. So the asset that PayPal has, which is its 400 million consumer wallets, the Venmo and distribution that it has, and now the stablecoin and agentic AI rails, all of these are valuable assets, and management is in so many ways communicating that. So the board has shown that this lowball offer isn't where they see the company's true potential. If you pay attention to the words in Enrique's commentary today, the message is clear. They're open to a deal, but it needs to reflect the true franchise value. And management said that they feel confident about the turnaround execution with Fastlane or with margin expansion, and they think that'll yield higher long-term shareholder value. And they are willing to do the hard work, or at least go down trying. So these comments are likely reflecting in the share price more than the earnings itself today.
How credible is this buyer? Can you tell us about who this buyer is and who this bidder is and kind of how credible they are?
So Stripe is a very large competitor and a direct competitor for PayPal. They're a private company, and which is why, strategically, this asset makes sense for Stripe to kind of acquire. It's just that the offer was a lowball offer. This asset gives Stripe direct consumer relationships. So they do the merchant side of the processing. They have all the AI native companies, they have a wonderful new modern tech stack, but the PayPal's two-sided network where they have all the consumers and the merchants, that's something that Stripe would, that's Stripe's envy. That's what they want. A consumer wallet, something like a Venmo, which has become a verb instead of a a company asset, right? So when I say, okay, let me Venmo you, you understand what I'm talking about. So that's something that Stripe would like to acquire.
To turn its brand into a verb.
Yeah, like Kleenex.
Yes.
I like Venmo. I think it's...
Or Q-tip.
It's yeah, exactly right. All right, Diksha, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Diksha Guerra, she's the Senior FinTech and Payments Analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. This is Bloomberg.
Now on Bloomberg Intelligence, private markets in focus.
All right, folks, this private market segment is brought to you by Franklin Templeton. Franklin Templeton harnesses the combined private markets expertise of Benefit Street Partners, Clarion Partners, and Lexington Partners. Learn more at ftprivatemarkets.com. Let's check in with Christopher Merrill, Global CEO and co-founder of Harrison Street Asset Management. Christopher, just give us the lay of the land on private equity today from a fundraising perspective, from a deal activity perspective, from an exiting perspective. How is business?
How much time do we have?
You got a good 6 minutes.
It's great to be here. Look, I think the industry is evolving just rapidly. You're seeing big theme, big consolidation right now in the industry and in the private assets world. You're seeing investors want fewer relationships. They want fewer managers. They want managers to bring them as many solutions that they can. Once an investor gets comfortable with the culture, the business, the operational due diligence, it really is on that manager to become more relevant. And so you're seeing a great consolidation in the industry. Our business, we're a $100 billion real assets business, real estate equity, debt, infrastructure. Certainly seeing a rotation out of a lot of sort of other private asset classes into real assets, just given the durability of cash flows. So certainly a lot of positive undertones and good tailwinds within the real assets markets right now.
In the real assets market, which sector or which theme do you have the highest conviction in at the moment?
For us, we've always been, for over 20 years, really focused on sort of demand-driven assets, need-based assets around education, healthcare, storage. Really not trying to time cycles, but really looking for things where these assets are needed in good and bad times. So we're very bullish in the education sector, working in off-campus student housing throughout North America and Europe, as well as on campus with many universities that have deferred maintenance issues, and where we can set up public-private partnerships. We're also very, very bullish on healthcare. We're very bullish on senior housing right now. We've been doing that for over 20 years as well. And there is just a unbelievable demand for space right now and such a shortage of supply. We're seeing 80,000 people turning 80 every month, and really the supply is not there. And, as people age, health needs, memory issues, very hard to take care of a loved one with those issues. And so we've got a tremendous shortage of supply. But then also we're seeing a lot of things around digital infrastructure, data centers, renewable energy. So again, demand-driven assets, resilient cash flows, low volatility. That's really where we're focused, and we're seeing a lot of capital interest from our investors around the globe.
Chris, is the AI build cycle, is it overhyped?
It's interesting. I mean, I think the obviously the demand for data is off the charts and growing. And when you look at the end user, what the real issue is when we look at data centers and how we invest, it's really the access to power. And that's going to be the challenge. I mean, power is going to increase 2, 3, 4 times here in the next 5 to 10 years. And really accessing that power is challenging. And so that's the big issue that one needs to focus on. When we think about how we invest in data centers, we're really looking for good infill locations, access to power, great offtake agreements with some strong hyperscalers. But, again, that need for data and what we're seeing, again, is robust, and it's not going anywhere.
You had mentioned this rotation into private real assets, and it's coming out of corporate private credit. What is the sentiment like on corporate private credit right now? Do people feel like the worst is over? Do you feel that the worst is over?
Well, it's a tough one because it really depends on where are you investing within that within that asset class. Are you in software companies? Are you in industrial companies? We're certainly seeing a rotation into infrastructure and real estate, just given the durability of the cash flow, the tangible asset class. When we look at asset classes around education, healthcare, we've seen how these asset classes do through the GFC, through the pandemic, just very consistent, resilient asset classes. And the challenge really has been the lack of distributions out of privates right now. And that's been a challenge for folks to raise capital. And so when you've got this sort of demand wave, you've got this enrollment increase at public universities, you've got this aging population, this need for space, supply's been just choked off because hard to access capital, hard to get debt financing. So you've got these amazing tailwind right now in these sort of demand-based assets. And I think that's what a lot of people see, right? Inflation protection, resilient cash flows, ability to reprice. And that's where we're seeing a big level of interest and a lot of demand.
All right, Chris, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Christopher Merrill, he is the global CEO and co-founder of Harrison Street Asset Management. And one of the areas that he mentioned was university housing. I went to a college where all 4 years housing guaranteed. Didn't even think about it. My 4 kids, it was a disaster. Because
maybe the first year was covered, right?
First year covered.
Yeah.
And then it's good luck.
Yeah.
And you got this 20, 50, 100,000 kids all looking for apartments in Boulder, Colorado.
I know, where they're competing with professionals, with families for any kind of housing.
So finally after the first kid, I realized I'm not getting involved. It's your job. You figure it out. You go get all your stuff,
You write the checks. That's how you're involved.
Yeah, exactly. So they learned quickly. But so one more year of
you're almost done.
2 more checks to write and I'm done. I've been writing college tuition checks for 12 years now. Unbelievable.
You've seen the heart of the inflation go up.
Crazy. S&P up 24, Dow up 570, the NASDAQ down 15. The markets are rallying here as we close out the morning session. We'll have more coming up. This is Bloomberg.
Speed, analysis, context. This is Boston's best source for news on the FM dial. Bloomberg 92.9. Coming up, the latest market-moving headlines from Bloomberg. First, an update from our partners at ABC News.
ABC News, I'm Sherry Preston. Americans' confidence in the economy falling this month as gas prices resume their climb. The Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index falling during the month of July. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meeting with President Trump today face-to-face for the first time since the war was launched 5 months ago today. Both leaders, as well as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, will attend funeral services for South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham at the National Cathedral this afternoon. Senator John Thune at the Capitol Rotunda honoring him today.
And to Lindsay, rest in peace, my friend. I look forward to the days when you make us all laugh again.
People are believed trapped under a collapsed shopping mall in southern Japan following a strong earthquake earlier this morning. This is ABC News.
The news doesn't stop on the weekends, and now neither do we. This is Christina Raffini. Join us on Bloomberg this weekend. Watch and listen to our new show Saturdays and Sundays starting at 7 a.m. on Bloomberg Radio, TV, and the Bloomberg Business app.
At Franklin Templeton, we've long believed in the importance of turning wisdom into a sharper edge. That's why we've combined the expertise of Benefit Street Partners, Clarion Partners, and Lexington Partners to offer you a variety of private market opportunities previously available only to institutional investors. Learn more at ftprivatemarkets.com. Again, that's ftprivatemarkets.com. All investments involve risk, including loss of principal.
Don't wait for headlines. Watch the news unfold in real time at Bloomberg's New Economy Forum, live from New Delhi, October 13th through the 15th, as global leaders come together to tackle the biggest issues shaping our future, from geopolitics and global trade to technology and the world's new balance of power. You'll have a front row seat to the conversations that matter most. Watch live at BloombergNewEconomy.com. That's BloombergNewEconomy.com.
The entertainment business is changing fast. At Bloomberg Screen Time, we'll bring together the executives, creators, investors, and entrepreneurs shaping what's next in Hollywood, music, sports, and gaming. We'll talk about the biggest stories in media, like the merger of Paramount and Warner Brothers, the booming live events business, and the potential impact of AI. I'm Lucas Shaw, and I'll be hosting Bloomberg Screen Time in Los Angeles September 30th and October 1st. Join us and request your invitation today at bloomberglive.com/screentime/radio.
Bloomberg Radio, on demand and in your podcast feed.
On the latest edition of the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast, Meredith Whitney of the Meredith Whitney Group.
Historically, pre-Great Financial Crisis, remember the 90s, 2000s, when bank stocks valuations were trading at all-time highs, they would do transformational deals. Yep. There was massive M&A, massive consolidation. This cycle, since the crisis, once they got out of effectively regulatory prison, they started buying back shares. They increased dividends to a certain extent, but their favored route was buying back shares. And you would think that makes sense in when the stocks are trading with low valuations. But the banks have still bought back shares at high valuations, close to 3 times. And it's not as if, the brokers used to, you remember the days, they used to buy back shares to offset their stock compensation. They've done that at exponential levels to their stock compensation. So historically, you'd think, wow, at all-time high valuations, price to tangible book, they would do some type of M&A. I think the one bank and one CEO that has the temerity actually do a deal is none other than Jamie Dimon.
So frame an example deal. Example deal.
I think when people thought that Jamie Dimon would retire with their new headquarters, that time came and went. He wants to do something big. And by big, I don't mean State Street, Northern Trust. I think he does something fintech, but major fintech.
Hear the full conversation on the latest edition of the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Plus, listen anytime on the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker, the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash, brought to you by Golden Crest Metals. Inflation, tariffs, and volatility have some investors turning to gold for stability. To get a free gold and silver information guide and learn how to add metals to your IRA or 401k tax and penalty free, go to goldencrestmetals.com/guide. That's goldencrestmetals.com/guide. Consumer staples, healthcare, and material stocks, they're in the lead. And then you have the information technology, worst performing major industry group. So investors continue to sour on the semiconductors. But at this point, we're off the worst levels of the day. And it's not exactly the greatest setup for the next round of earnings. Microsoft, Meta Platforms, they're set to report Wednesday, followed by Apple and Amazon on Thursday. Stu Kaiser at Citigroup Global Markets says there are more than a few signals coming from the recent tech selling.
The market is telling these companies, you're failing to do a couple of things for us, right? Number one, you haven't made a compelling case for what the ROIC on these investments is going to be, so we're going to question that. Secondly, you haven't really communicated what the glide path on this spending is going to be.
Right now, the Dow up 607 points, up 1.2%, 52,820. The S&P 500, that is higher, up 28 points at 7441. It's the NASDAQ 100 that is lower, down 184 points, down about 0.7%. But again, off the worst levels of the session. And then you have to take into account the fall in oil prices. Brent down close to 5% at $84.42 a barrel. I love these stories in the Wall Street Journal where they profile individuals and get these wacky stories. Through years of extraordinary political upheaval, the sound engineer at number 10 Downing Street is who they focused on. He has served as a chiseled omen of great change. This is Tobias Goth's duty was simple. Wheel out the wooden lectern, test the mic whenever Premier was about to resign or make a major announcement. Over the years, fans have suggested that he should be the next prime minister. The 42-year-old is, according to the Journal, their words, kind of hot. So when Andy Burnham decided to break with tradition and make his inaugural address, accompanied by only a minimalist microphone stand, a vocal faction of the electorate went into panic. Absolute fear they weren't going to see hot podium guy anymore.
Did hot podium guy end up making an appearance anyway, or no?
I don't, Larry the Cat was there, but hot podium guy, kind of in the background. So there's a lot of worries that he's not going to be around.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe there'll be another change in leadership at the UK at some point.
It's distinctly possible.
Hot
7 premieres in how many years?
Yeah.
Anyway, we check the markets and other stuff for you right here. It's a great read on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker.
Do they include a picture? That's my question.
I didn't look. It's radio.
John Tucker.
I didn't see. So.
All right, that's for everyone else to figure out. Thank you so much.
I think I piqued Scarlett's interest.
Yeah.
You did. John Tucker, Bloomberg Business Flash for us there. Let's get back to earnings because we've got earnings coming left and right. Boeing just reported, and George Ferguson is our senior aerospace, defense, and airlines analyst. He joins us now from Princeton. George, the headline here that Bloomberg News has highlighted is that Boeing generated better than expected cash flow in the second quarter, and it still aims to generate $1 to $3 billion in free cash flow this year. It sounds like that is the metric that matters the most to investors right now, isn't it?
It is, right? So I think that it's always super important to generate cash. You can tell if companies are cheating or not, depending on whether or not they're generating cash. They could show earnings and no cash, and then you're like, doesn't matter. But the second thing for Boeing is they want to pay down some of this debt they have in the balance sheet over time, right? They need to get themselves into better rating sort of territory. And so that cash generation will go to, at some point, helping to liquidate some of that debt and then tightening up the balance sheet.
George, where's Boeing these days on delivery of those 737 MAX? You've told us in the past that that's really the cash generator for this company. And where are they these days, and where do you expect them to get to?
Yeah, so Kelly Ortberg confirmed that they're at 47 a month about now. We're seeing a little bit less come out the door of the factory. But that they measure these at different points in the production schedule. But they're 47, going to 52 early next year. Another important component of that cash flow story, right? The beauty of this business is it does finance itself as you increase build rate. And so as you increase build rate, airplanes start to, you get ready to cut metal in airplanes. You go out and you ask the customer to start bringing the deposits. And they bring deposits as the airplane moves down the production process to essentially fund the build of the airplane. So when you're increasing build rates, customers are increasing the send of money into the company, and that's what we saw driving cash flow today. When you slow down build rates unexpectedly, customers stop sending that money in, and you suddenly have to finance it somewhere else. So again, this cash generation, a nice positive because customers are submitting cash because airplanes are about to be cut or in the process, and as you boost that build rate, you bring more of that in, which means it should persist if things go well.
Let's talk about JetBlue because that company reported earnings as well. And it looks like it posted a loss in the quarter, but it was narrower than what analysts had anticipated. JetBlue I don't want to call it an also-ran, but it's not doing as well as Delta and United with their premium offerings. But it's been trying to make up for that lost ground. How's it doing in that effort?
Yeah, I mean, yields came in a bit better than we thought. I think they were high single digits, getting close to 10%. I think that's pretty good. It's pretty challenging right now. I think, for a company like JetBlue, the good portion of their business right now is going to be the premium business and any loyalty money they can make. It's never going to be as much as Delta and United, and so they kind of operate from a disadvantage to that standpoint. Again, they do have a bunch of premium, seats inside those airplanes, especially Transcon. They have a pretty loyal following, but that back of the airplane basic economy seat, I think, is the challenge seat right now for getting the right price for it. And so, and there's a bit of a scramble, I think, going on now between them and Frontier to try to grab those customers that Spirit Airlines left behind. Now, again, that's not a high-end customer, but it looked a bit better to us during the quarter than we had originally expected as well. So it does okay. Again, we're still, this is still a very challenging environment for them, but looked a bit better than we expected.
George, I'm so glad you bring up Spirit because JetBlue has won court approval to acquire Spirit's LaGuardia slots. It still requires the FAA approval, but it's trying to pick up some of the benefits of a competitor going away. Does that change the game for JetBlue to get these precious slots at LaGuardia Airport?
Well, I mean, I don't know that it changes the game, but it's LaGuardia slots are high-value slots, given the proximity to New York City. This is a core market for JetBlue. You'd like to not only take those slots, but keep competitors out of there to fight for those tickets or those customers. So to me, it'd be a good sign if they can get a hold of them, and probably well on their way if they've already got they've got one approval.
George, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I know you'll value this. I recently became a 1 million mile flyer for United Airlines. Are you impressed?
Very nice. Yes. I don't think I'm there yet. So.
Yeah, that's what happens when you spend 40 years shilling,
I was going to say decades.
Shilling for money all across the global Wall Street here. That's kind of my life.
What did they give you? What did they give you?
Oh, I had the pilot come up to me before we took off, sat down next to me. We had a nice little conversation. He got a little medallion.
Do you get little wings to put on your jacket?
No, but I did get the medallion, which is very...
okay, medallion's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. So I got a little plaque and all that kind of stuff. So I'm special, George, in case you didn't know that. All right, George Ferguson, thanks so much. George covers all the aerospace and defense companies for Bloomberg Intelligence. He's been doing that for decades, and before that, believe it or not, he is a U.S. Army veteran. He was an officer. Shocking to me. And what's even more shocking, he was in Army Intelligence. I mean, you just don't put those two together, George, and Army Intelligence. But there you go. S&P up 34 points. The Dow up 643 points. That's 1.2% on the Dow.
What's leading the Dow?
And even the NASDAQ turned positive. I mean, it's up 1/10%.
Sherwin-Williams, the best performer.
I know, isn't that amazing? Sherwin-Williams is leading the Dow higher. I just don't think that. We'll take a look at this. Oil lower. We got it below $80 for WTI crude oil.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Partial sun, but there's the potential for some showers and thunderstorms before the afternoon is over. 80 to 85. Low pressure will bring us showers and thunderstorms tonight and possibly some heavy rain at 65 to 70. Showers and thunderstorms could produce heavy downpours tomorrow. Highs are 70 to 75. Few showers and maybe a thunderstorm Thursday, 70 to 75. I'm Rob Carolyn with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Shape the conversation on Bloomberg Radio. Tomorrow, listen for wall-to-wall coverage of big tech earnings as Microsoft, Qualcomm, and Meta report.
This is a blowout quarter.
And now, Bloomberg subscribers can submit questions for our experts. Visit Bloomberg.com/AskRadio to send questions to our hosts.
Earnings kicking into high gear.
Your questions on big tech earnings live on Bloomberg Radio. A subscriber exclusive. Visit Bloomberg.com/AskRadio to join the conversation. Then listen at 4 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio.
Man, I love this place. I've been surfing here since I was a kid. Now, seeing my grandson out on the water, it means everything to me. Watching him and taking in the blue waves, the sea breeze, the blurry horizon.
If you have geographic atrophy, or GA, subtle changes in vision could mean it's progressing toward irreversible vision loss. Izervay is proven to slow GA progression and could help preserve your vision for longer, so you may keep seeing the world around you. Izervay, or avacincaptad pegol, is an eye injection. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may cause blood in the white of the eye, blurred vision, or a temporary increase in eye pressure. Do not drive or use machinery until vision has recovered after an eye injection or exam. Ask your retina specialist how you can slow your GA with Izervay. To learn more, call 1-855-IZERVAY or go to izervay.com. Paid for by Astellas Pharma.
trade your portfolio with the power of prediction market probabilities. With Interactive Brokers, trade prediction markets on election, climate, and economic outcomes, right alongside stocks, options, and bonds. Prediction market prices reflect probability, and correct predictions receive $1 per contract. Plus, earn interest on your position. Prediction contracts are not suitable for all investors. Visit ibkr.com/predictions.
Next week on Leaders with me, Francine Lacqua. I speak with investor and entrepreneur Amanda Stavely on the boldest deal of her career.
That was brave.
Walking away from Newcastle.
It was the toughest decision. I've made it.
And what she's looking for in her next football club.
I just want a challenge, and that's what excites me.
Listen and watch Leaders with me, Francine Lacqua, on Bloomberg Television or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to Bloomberg Intelligence with Scarlett Fu and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Scarlett Fu and Paul Sweeney. We're live here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York City. We are streaming live on YouTube. We're streaming live at Bloomberg.com/video. And that's where you'll find all our stuff. UPS reported some numbers here today. I think the outlook, a little disappointing to people. The stock's trading down about 4 or 5% here. Thomas Black joins us. He's a columnist for Bloomberg Opinion, covers logistics, manufacturing, and aerospace, calling in via that Zoom thing from Dallas, Texas. Thomas, I see the stock trading off a little bit here. What did the company's results say about their business?
It says it's still a tough market. They are cutting costs and trying to increase more profitable packages by calling out some of the Amazon business that they had relied on. And this is all to make up for the most expensive workforce in the industry. So that's the path they're on. And they've already they've done most of their initiatives, and now they need to let them play out and see if they're going to work their way through to higher operating margins.
Talk about their relationship with Amazon. I know they're in the process of unwinding that relationship with delivering Amazon.com packages. What's the strategy behind that policy?
The strategy is to not deliver so many of the low cost packages that Amazon likes to dump on other entities, right? Either the Postal Service or UPS or other folks. These are a lot of times lightweight packages that go short distances, and UPS doesn't make much money, and it has a high-cost labor force, again, so it's trying to get away from that. It's not a complete walk away from Amazon. It's more of a glide down, as CEO Carol Tomei likes to say. They've glided that down to about 9% of their total sales going to Amazon. It used to be about 13% at the height of the pandemic. So they're not going to break from Amazon completely. They just want the higher profit packages from them.
So, it's interesting when I think about it, FedEx or UPS, I think about a big fixed cost businesses, the warehouses, the planes, all that kind of stuff. And I would think you'd want to punt as much volume through there as possible. But I guess, UPS is saying we need to focus on kind of the unit profitability a little bit more.
That's correct. And they're also looking to automate more. They've shut down a lot of facilities. In the end, by the end of this year, it'll be 150 facilities that they're shutting down. These are older ones that don't have as much automation. So they're moving toward more automation and packages that cost more. That's mostly in healthcare, small businesses, some businesses. They're getting away really from the e-commerce packages, which have become commoditized.
Interesting. You mentioned kind of just technology, so you have to kind of weave in, and I wonder how the company weaves in AI into their operations. What are they saying about that?
Yeah, they have a pretty powerful network now because they've introduced RFID, which sounds like an old technology, but it actually has gotten so cheap and so small that they can print RFID labels. So these labels that go on the packages can be picked up without having to physically scan them. So that's a pretty powerful tool. And then you marry all that data flowing in automatically into the system, and that's where AI takes that data and breaks it down and works its magic.
What's the company saying these days about maybe its growth strategy? We've heard over the last couple of years kind of how they want to focus on unit profitability, but at some point they need to talk about, how they believe they're going to grow their top line.
Right. They're going all in on healthcare. That's a big one. This is where you get into some of the specialized deliveries with cold chain, where things have to remain cold and sometimes at very, very low temperatures throughout the whole network. And UPS has been building on that. FedEx has also entered into this. And small businesses, these are the folks that don't have enough volume to really get those big discounts. So they tend to be more profitable customers. And of course, the B2B, the business to business deliveries those are bread and butter deliveries that they won't walk away from. What they are walking away from are some of those e-commerce deliveries, especially the residential ones where you don't have a lot of packages going to one stop. That density where you can deliver more packages at one stop is a key to boosting margins. And the residential deliveries, they're never going to be as profitable as business deliveries.
So talk to us about just the geographic growth. Do they call out, I know they're primarily in the U.S., but they have a pretty decent international exposure as well. Do they call out any area as a potential opportunity or potential problem area?
Yes, they talked about international quite a bit. I think they have some opportunities to do what they did in the U.S. in international, which is to maybe call out some of those low profit packages and concentrate on the higher dollar ones, if you will, and also to automate more and become more efficient. They also talked about some of their trade lanes becoming more normalized. They said that they had growth in their China to U.S. trade lane for the first time in many quarters. Interesting. And they're working through the elimination of the de minimis packages. I don't know if you remember that whole flap, sure. But that was a lot of volume that was coming through UPS and at a pretty good price too. That went away very suddenly, and they're starting to lap that. So it's looking a little bit better on the numbers.
All right, very good. Tom, thank you. Appreciate it. Thomas Black, he's a columnist who covers logistics, manufacturing, and aerospace for Bloomberg a Bloomberg Opinion, based down there in Dallas, Texas. For our listeners in the U.S., a reminder, you can listen to us via satellite radio, Sirius XM Channel 121. Access the world's only global audio business network, coast to coast, 24 hours a day. Bloomberg Radio on Sirius XM Channel 121 is presented by Golden Crest Metals. Stay tuned for the latest market news and industry revenues. Your top business stories and global business headlines are coming up right now.
This is WBOS HD1 Brookline, Boston. WNBP Newburyport. Programming paid for by Bloomberg. Now, an update from our partners at ABC News.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. On Capitol Hill, a farewell for the late Senator Lindsey Graham. A ceremony held earlier in the rotunda. Lawmakers from across the aisle now paying tribute to the South Carolina statesman who served his country for decades in Congress and in the military. This afternoon, a funeral service will be held at National Cathedral. JBC's Jay O'Brien is there.
Graham will be eulogized here at the National Cathedral by his close friend, President Donald Trump, who has said that the South Carolina Republican was like family to him. Graham died suddenly just about 2 weeks ago due to heart complications. He had just returned from a trip to Ukraine where he met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky will be here in attendance for Graham's funeral today in honor, he says, for Graham's steadfast support for his country and its defense against Russia.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also will attend the funeral services. Officials in Japan assessing the damage following that powerful 6.8 magnitude earthquake today centered off the coast of southern Japan. ABC's James Longman has more.
Fires have been reported, thousands are without power, and there are also concerns about landslides. There's a particular focus on a mall where the floor collapsed and aerials from the scene show the roof has caved in too. Local media say at least 50 people are in the hospital with injuries. The Prime Minister has said people's lives are the top priority, and they've set up a task force to deploy for rescue operations if needed.
Wildfires continuing to ravage parts of Spain and France, with hundreds of thousands fleeing their homes and towns and new evacuation orders. Here in the U.S., cleanup underway after tornadoes tore through the Midwest. ABC's Alex Perez is in hard-hit Menasha, Wisconsin.
The city of Menasha, Wisconsin, taking a direct hit, prompting the mayor to declare a local state of disaster. I headed down to the basement, and when I come up, it's like a war zone here.
The view from above shows roofs ripped from homes and businesses destroyed.
Those severe storms targeting the Northeast today with flash flooding the concern. You're listening to ABC News.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Area of low pressure that's going to form over the mid-Atlantic states in the Northeast is going to lead to unsettled conditions. We need some rainfall, and it certainly looks like it'll be occurring from late this afternoon right on into Thursday as the system slowly moves through the region. We're partly sunny this afternoon. However, there is the chance for a shower or a thunderstorm. Temperatures are going to be anywhere from 80 to 85. Scattered showers, thunderstorms night. A few of the thunderstorms could produce some locally heavy rainfall. Nighttime lows are 65 to 70. We're at risk for more showers and thunderstorms tomorrow. Highs are 70 to 75. Again, some of the downpours with the thunderstorms could be heavy. Tomorrow night, scattered showers, the risk of a thunderstorm, a low of 65. Low pressure lingers over the area Thursday. More clouds, the risk of some showers or a thunderstorm. Thursday's highs 70 to 75. I'm Rob Carolyn, and that's your Bloomberg 3-day forecast. Now back to the latest headlines from ABC News.
Singer Ariana Grande is suing dozens of hackers for leaking her previously unreleased music and personal information for profit. Grande says years of cyber scams and attacks led her to personal data and content being posted on the dark web for significant sums of money. Here's ABC's Hannah Battah.
The lawsuit claims the unnamed suspects hacked into various personal digital accounts of photographers and producers who have worked closely with Grande, leading to the unlawful and egregious theft, dissemination, and exploitation of unreleased content. The lawsuit filed in Los Angeles names John Doe 1 and John Does 2 through 100 as defendants, accusing them of invasion of privacy and violating a California data theft law.
Grande wants the identity of the hackers revealed, and she's demanding a jury trial. Walmart held the title for 12 consecutive years, but the retailer is no longer the biggest company in the world.
At least not according to the Fortune Global 500 ranking released this morning. Amazon is number one this year, with revenue surging 12% and surpassing $700 billion. Behind the online retailer is former number one Walmart, followed by China's State Grid, United Healthcare Group, and Saudi Aramco. Apple comes in as the world's sixth largest company by revenue.
ABC's Jim Ryan. No grand prize winner in Powerball last night. That means tomorrow night's drawing will be worth at least $633 million. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Live from Washington, D.C., this is Balance of Power with Joe Matthew.
President Trump plays down escalation in Iran as Washington stops to remember a hawk. Welcome to the Tuesday edition as the president urges Tehran to make a deal. Amid meetings today at the White House with Benjamin Netanyahu and Volodymyr Zelensky in town, both to attend the late Lindsey Graham's funeral today. We're going to get the latest on both fronts when we speak with Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall and Dan Williams, who's at the White House right now. Jensen Huang hits the Hill today to make the case for AI just before Sam Altman shows up. We'll cover both with Bloomberg's Mike Shepard. And as the Senate prepares to tackle government funding before the August recess, we'll have analysis from our political panel. All after a look at Wall Street. Suddenly positive now. Let's get a lift from Charlie Pellet. He's at World Headquarters in New York. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, thank you very much, Joe Matthew. Lots of cross currents. I can count at least four. We got the semiconductor sell-off here. We've got oil in the Middle East. We've got tech earnings. And, of course, the Fed. They have begun meeting. Decision tomorrow, 2 o'clock Wall Street time. But, yes, major reversal for equities. Have been down as many as 30 points on the S&P 500 index, down 0.4%. But right now, as you correctly point out, Joe, a major reversal there. S&P now higher by 32, up by about 0.4%. Dow Industrials up 633 points. That is an advance of 1.2%, while NASDAQ is up 29 now, gain there of 0.1%. Major sell-off, though, for the NASDAQ 100 index. Continued weakness in semiconductor names. We've got the NASDAQ 100 index trading near a correction right now. That index is down 0.5%. Everybody's watching the SOX, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange Semiconductor Index, down 4 down to 3.5% right now. The VIX right at 18. The 2-year 4.26%. The 10-year 4.59%, and the 30-year 5.08%. Gold now at $4,044 the ounce, lower by 0.8%. West Texas Intermediate crude 78.55 a barrel. WTI down 5%. Barrel of Brent 83.83. It is down now by 5.1%. Fed policymakers have begun their 2-day meeting. President Trump saying interest rates in the U.S. should be lower. He made that comment in response to a question from reporters aboard Air Force One. Trump says he knows what the new Fed Chair Kevin Warsh wants to do, but acknowledges Warsh does not make the decision alone. Thomas Honig is Distinguished Fellow at the Marcatus Center. He's also a former president of the Kansas City Fed. He told us this morning he does see the Fed standing pat.
There's uncertainty about whether inflation is under control or not. I think that's important. I think also that the rest of the yield curve is higher. So the Fed, the FOMC has an excuse if they want to say, well, let's look, we need to wait 7 weeks to get more data, and therefore we're going to hold off.
Former Kansas City Fed President Tom Honig interviewed this morning on surveillance. Of course, the Fed decision 2 o'clock tomorrow, Wall Street time. Recapping, S&P up 0.4, major sell-off in crude. West Texas Intermediate down 4.9%. Joe Matthew, that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie. Boy, a lot to cover today. This is a pretty wild market, and Charlie will have a lot more on it coming up in just about 15 minutes. You know we're in a different world. I realize it's all about the AI unwind here, and Charlie can't do a newscast without mentioning the SOX, by God. But it is a different world when the biggest gainers we're looking at include Sherwin-Williams and Equivia. That's the market we're in. As I mentioned, we'll have more from Charlie coming up as we try to figure out the next moves for the United States when it comes to Iran and Ukraine. And both are coming to a head today, thanks to the late Senator Lindsey Graham. The fact that all these people are in town for the funeral at the National Cathedral that's set to begin 2 hours from now is providing a massive opportunity for advancement in both causes. So thanks for joining us on an important Tuesday edition here on Bloomberg Radio, streaming live on YouTube. Search Bloomberg Business News Live as we'll bring you to the North Lawn in just a moment. The president will be making tracks up to the National Cathedral, and we'll talk to Tyler Kendall about this in just a moment. He's got meetings in advance of that. Already had one with President Zelensky in town from Ukraine to pay tribute to Lindsey Graham, but also to meet with lawmakers and the president here in his effort to get more defensive weaponry to Ukraine. Benjamin Netanyahu has been vying to get in front of the president, we're told, for weeks, if not months. Finally, the funeral presented the venue to do so. And so we've got an important moment here. And we heard from the president already. He dialed into Fox News ahead of the funeral to try to lay down the law here. In one breath, downplaying the idea of escalation, saying that he hopes that Iran takes the deal, but also resurfacing this idea of striking Pickaxe Mountain, which is apparently a new obsession, knowing that hundreds, if not thousands, of centrifuges are reportedly buried beneath what is 450 feet of bedrock, would take some heavy-duty bunker-busting bombs, likely dropped from an American B-1 bomber, to get there. President says he's ready. Listen to him from this morning.
Bibi's telling me that because he wants me to stay involved. I mean, I don't necessarily. We have the finest, because of Space Force, we have the greatest cameras in the world focused on. We know exactly what's going on. But, no, I heard Bibi announce that. I said, why don't you just tell it to me? Why do you have to announce it to the world? I know exactly what's going on at Pickaxe. It's not a big problem. We took out their nuclear sites, and we'll have to take out Pickaxe if we don't make a deal. If we don't make a deal, we'll take it out very easily.
We'll see about that. Among the opportunities for escalation, including dropping more bridges, in the president's words. Let's bring in our two reporters here. Dan Williams, Bloomberg News Jerusalem reporter, is with us live in Washington. He's at the White House today as Benjamin Netanyahu continues his meetings in the building just behind him. And of course, Tyler Kendall is with us as well, with me here in our Washington bureau. Dan, I'm going to start with you. This meeting that is underway right now will lead to what in the hopes of Benjamin Netanyahu?
This meeting is now well into its second hour.
it would appear that Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, at the very least, wants to close ranks with his chief ally, the US President Trump. It's worth remembering this is their first meeting since they launched that war against Iran on February 28th. By every account, they hoped that war would have ended within 4 to 6 weeks with victory. That did not happen. I don't think either of them wanted to find themselves 5 months into the war, and today is the 5-month mark of that war. There have been some cracks in the alliance, or at least in the relationship between these leaders when it comes to Iran, when it comes to second-order issues in the region, such as Lebanon, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Syria. It would appear that the president has used this opportunity, as you noted, the loss of a major pro-Israel voice on Capitol Hill, not just to pay his respects in the name of a country that really did have very warm feelings toward the late Senator Lindsey Graham, but also to speak to Trump and make sure, to the extent possible, that the bilateral relationship is still on track at a juncture point for this war, given Trump's obvious exasperation with how protracted it's been, and with so far failed attempts to wrest back control of the strategic Strait of Hormuz.
Dan, is it possible to characterize their relationship at this point? Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump called each other friends in public, but there's been extensive reporting on their frayed relationship. We heard from Lindsey Graham in some of the filming that was done for a documentary that's being produced, that no president ever spoke to Benjamin Netanyahu the way Donald Trump does, giving it to him straight, yelling at him, berating him at times. Are these two actually friends at this point? And what could come from this confab?
The idea that they've had direct private conversations, clashes between them, isn't new. It's gone back several months now. We know that Trump can be churlish. He can be this way to his friends and certainly to his foes. I think the Israelis take it in stride. If we've had previous episodes of tensions, certainly the relationship survived, and I think we can expect the same to happen here. This meeting was held well away from the press. However, the Israeli Prime Minister's office just issued pictures showing both of the leaders smiling broadly alongside each other, and also the meeting very well attended in a crowded Oval Office, crowded despite the absence of reporters, with senior aides to Trump, his secretaries for war, for the Treasury and for State in attendance, as well as the Israeli retinue. Something significant is being discussed. The question is this a parting of ways over Iran? Is Trump reading Netanyahu the riot act in terms of wanting Israel to accept less that Israel may have hoped for from this war? Or, alternatively, are they discussing potentially a reunification in the fighting against Iran, something none of us will expect it? It's worth remembering that the last time they met was on February 11th, and some 17 days later, the Allies launched that surprise war against Iran. So time will tell. For now, they're playing it very close to their chest. This obviously accords with the solemnity of the day with Senator Graham's funeral, but the grayness of D.C. right now is, I think, matched by a deliberate strategic haze in the White House.
Really fascinating and great reporting, Dan. To Dan's point, this meeting began at 11:03 a.m. Per the White House, so we are now in hour 2. Tyler Kendall with me here in Washington as well. Tyler, interesting that the president has chosen in both of these meetings to not invite the press into the Oval Office or whatever venue is being had at this point with Netanyahu. You were with the president all day yesterday. You traveled to Michigan. You talked to him in the back of Air Force One. You saw him in action. What's his demeanor as he's going into, frankly, what could be a pivotal and very difficult emotional day?
That's a really good point. Having both of these meetings back to back, these leaders coming in and out, but not really getting a readout yet from the White House. Yesterday, President Trump was highly focused on the conflict in Iran, as we were all asking questions on what caused this pause in fighting. What indications has the U.S. gotten that Iran is coming to the table? And to build on Dan's reporting, we were reporting earlier today that it is Iran and Oman that are talking about a potential deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And then once that is potentially in place, then we could see the U.S. resume formal negotiations about potential curbs. The issue is the Strait of Hormuz at this point remains basically stalled, and you also have now dwindling traffic in the Red Sea. And I had asked President Trump about whether or not he was concerned about those Houthi attacks against Saudi Arabia. He said that he's in constant contact with Saudi Arabia, but that so far the U.S. hasn't gotten involved when it comes to the Houthis, but that he stands ready to. He seemed very much to be leaving both options open here. He said he has plenty of time when it comes to the conflict in Iran, but also he's not going to give Iran that much time, and he will resume talks if if he needs to, leading to the comments that we played at the top when it comes to Pickaxe Mountain.
When it comes to Ukraine, Tyler, in our remaining moment, we're going to have an important vote on Russia sanctions later on today. This meeting this morning, combined with whatever vibe or emotion we're going to be hearing and feeling in the room in the National Cathedral, could lead to a very overwhelming vote.
Of course, and Washington obviously stunned over Lindsey Graham's death when it happened, in part because of questions about who will fill that gap left in terms of him being such a huge foreign policy hawk. We have Zelensky going to this funeral, as well as the Finnish president, Alexander Stubb, of course, also a staunch supporter of Ukraine, with Finland on the eastern flank when it comes to more military assistance going to Ukraine. Zelensky says that he spoke to President Trump about Patriot missiles. President Trump told us yesterday on Air Force One that he wants to keep the missiles, but we know these general licenses are going out. This vote, definitely something to watch later this evening.
No doubt. We'll be doing this, of course, on the late edition of Balance of Power. President Zelensky will be meeting with the full Senate membership later on today. Tyler, thank you. You're heading back to the White House, and we'll have more on these meetings when Tyler gets there in our second hour. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. Thanks for being with us on the Tuesday edition of Balance of Power, only here on Bloomberg. Make sure to subscribe to the Balance of Power podcast. Go to Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast to find us. Watch us live right now on YouTube and listen anytime at Bloomberg.com.
Shape the conversation on Bloomberg Radio. Tomorrow, listen for wall-to-wall coverage of big tech earnings as Microsoft, Qualcomm, and Meta report.
This is a blowout quarter.
And now, Bloomberg subscribers can submit questions for our experts. Visit Bloomberg.com/AskRadio to send questions to our hosts.
Earnings kicking into high gear.
Your questions on big tech earnings live on Bloomberg Radio. A subscriber exclusive. Visit Bloomberg.com/AskRadio to join the conversation. Then listen at 4 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio.
With the Bloomberg Small Business Report, I'm John Tucker. A deal with Yelp is pushing local reviews into ChatGPT, and small businesses should take notice. Yelp is licensing reviews, photos, and other business information to OpenAI, giving ChatGPT a new source of real-time local recommendation data. This partnership is an acknowledgement that chatbots are increasingly taking market share from traditional search as consumers turn to AI models for everyday questions. ChatGPT will surface Yelp reviews, ratings, photos, and other business details. Yelp's Request a Quote feature will also be added soon, allowing ChatGPT users to contact local service providers for quotes directly through the large language model. Yelp is betting that its database of human reviews will become even more valuable as AI-generated content makes up an increasing portion of the internet. And that's the Bloomberg Small Business Report.
Hi, how can I help?
Well, my husband and I feel like we've outgrown our current money manager.
I see.
Our lives have changed, and we need something more than just mutual funds to help us in retirement.
She's right.
I hear that often. At Fisher Investments, we'd start by getting to know you, your finances, family, health, lifestyle. We tailor a portfolio around your goals and needs.
Sounds good.
Can you help with estate planning?
Yes. We have a team of specialists who can help you with estate planning, Social Security, investment income, and more. We'll get to know your whole financial picture and help keep you on the path to a comfortable retirement.
And your fees?
We have a simple, transparent fee that's a percentage of the value of your portfolio. So we do better when you do better.
I feel better already.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com/different. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Low pressure is headed our way. It'll lead to unsettled weather through the middle part of the work week. We'll have sunshine and perhaps a shower or thunderstorm this afternoon. We're at 80 to 85. There's a risk of showers and thunderstorms tonight and the risk for some heavy downpours at 65 to 70. Showers and thunderstorms tomorrow, 70 to 75. Scattered showers and maybe a thunderstorm Thursday, high 70 to 75. I'm Rob Carrollton with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Say goodbye to old school AM radio. Listen to Bloomberg 92.9 for speed, analysis, and global context on the biggest stories. Your best source for news on the FM dial. Bloomberg 92.9. Faster, smarter, better.
It's 12:21 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. We have got the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all advancing. NASDAQ 100 index does remain lower, down another 0.6%. NASDAQ 100 nearing a correction as the chip sell-off continues. The stocks, the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, now down by 4%. NASDAQ 100 index down 0.6%. With the S&P higher by 28, just about the best level of the day, close to it, up now by 0.3%. Keep in mind, at the worst level of the day, we did have the S&P down by 0.4%. So a reversal there. The Dow pushing higher, up 650 now. That is a gain of 1.2%. NASDAQ Composite Index just about flat on the day. But again, perhaps the big story at this hour, NASDAQ 100 Index lower by 0.6%. Again, nearing a correction. The 2-year, 4.25%, with the 10-year, 4.58%. The 30-year, 5.08%. Gold is down $31 the ounce. Spot gold now at $45 the ounce, $4,045 the ounce, down 0.7. And West Texas Intermediate crude oil, WTI, $78.16 a barrel, down now by 5.4%. Barrel of Brent, $83.33, down now by 5.6%. Earnings news. Lots of companies out with earnings, but we're looking at Coca-Cola shares now higher by 5.1%. It raised its full-year outlook, bolstered by demand last quarter, while it served as a major sponsor of the FIFA World Cup. We saw PepsiCo, its rival, PepsiCo shares up by 1.6%. Again, recapping, the Dow, the S&P, they're both higher. NASDAQ now lower. NASDAQ 100 index down 0.7%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That, Joe Matthew, is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Okay, Charlie. Thank you, sir. He'll be back in about 20 minutes with another check on the markets. Live from World Headquarters in New York. Thank you for joining us here on the Tuesday edition of Balance of Power. I've been talking a lot about the meetings in Washington just now with Tyler Kendall, right? We've got President Zelensky, Prime Minister Netanyahu, both at the White House. Big stuff. There are 2 other meetings, 2 other visits from, you could call them world leaders, I suppose. They're tech titans. If there was a Mount Rushmore of artificial intelligence, both their faces would be on it. And they're in town here in this 24-hour cycle. It has nothing to do with Lindsey Graham, Iran, Russia, Ukraine. We're talking about Jensen Huang and Sam Altman, both in the Capitol this week for some overlapping but also slightly different reasons. Jensen Huang, who just sat down with Ed Ludlow, great interview last weekend, is going to be meeting with lawmakers, unclear if he gets to the White House, to make the case for America's position in the AI race, and maybe even pop open a few open-weighted models while we're at it. He talked to Ed Ludlow exclusively about the race that the United States is in with China, that both are not turning back from. Listen.
My expectation is that China and the United States will continue to advance AI. In the case of China, they're producing more AI researchers than probably all of the world has, in any given year. And so they're producing, if manufacturing intelligence is important, they manufacture the most important version of it, which is the researchers.
Yeah, and what are we doing? At the moment, we're selling AI. Can't get far away enough from it on Wall Street, although I will mention NVIDIA just turned positive. But you know the story lately. Talk of a bubble, circular investing, if not firing squad. The market wants to see some results here. And Jensen Huang arrives in town at a delicate moment. It's going to be spending time, we understand, with Senator Mark Warner. Sam Altman will be here tomorrow, also meeting with Warner. But he's got a whole different set of issues to speak to, which is why it's great that we have Shep with us right now. Bloomberg's Michael Shepard with us in studio. It's great to see you.
Great to be here, Joe.
I don't know if he gets over to the White House, but this isn't about regulation or new legislation. This seems to just be getting the buy-in, keeping lawmakers on board. Is that right?
Well, that's part of it, but he is cautioning against too much of a crackdown against this open weight model approach that has a lot of policymakers here in D.C. very concerned.
Does he believe everything should be open?
Maybe not every last thing, but he really does believe that, a wider dissemination and accessibility for artificial intelligence is a public good. And this is something that was endorsed by, dozens of other big tech companies, as well as startups, in a series of letters and posts over the past week. On Friday, there was that big missive that was signed by Jensen Huang and, of course, Satya Nadella from Microsoft, along with a bunch of other CEOs, getting on board this idea that, look, open weight AI models are actually a public good, that they're a good thing, and that any move to try to counteract China by cracking down or even banning open weight models would be a bad thing. And the reason there is so much focus on this whole open weight versus proprietary models like the ones that OpenAI and Anthropic have been pursuing, where you put a barrier up to the cost. In other words, if you want to use it, Joe, you have to sign in to OpenAI. You can't download the model and just kind of tinker with it yourself. You have to log in and then pay a fee for the tokens for the usage. The other way, the open weight way, is that, Joe, if you have enough computing power, yes, you too can download that Kimi K3 model. But it is a challenge, and it's a safety challenge, and that is one of the things that they did acknowledge. But they also say, look, the open weight approach does offer some safety benefits.
Interesting when we consider a safety challenge. Sam Altman's going to have a slightly different conversation. By the way, he's meeting tomorrow with Bessent, with Lutnick, with the aforementioned Mark Warner. They want to know what happened with this jailbreak that took place with the OpenAI platform, essentially hacking Hugging Face without anyone telling it to. Mike, will he have an answer?
They have tried to spell out exactly what happened. And their version of events is, look, the model actually obeyed the instructions, but perhaps a little bit too well. It broke out of its so-called sandbox. They had actually removed the guardrails for internal testing, but tried to keep it within this, walled garden, if you will. But it managed to get out, and it was doing what it was told. It was told to find vulnerabilities in AI models, and it went to this repository, Hugging Face, of a lot of different AI platforms, and then went to do its work. It surprised Hugging Face, which at first did not know the source or the origin of this attack, and even OpenAI was caught off guard by it too. So there will be a lot of questions about the kinds of guardrails that are in place and that should be in place for models that haven't yet been released. And of course, this factors into discussions among administration officials right now about exactly how those safety reviews, which they say will be voluntary, should be conducted. And we've scooped, of course, this idea circulating in the administration and pushed by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent that perhaps there be an industry-led initiative like FINRA for the Wall Street broker-dealer industry.
Just quickly, Mike, do Altman and Wong agree on the establishment of a national framework as opposed to state by state? Are they coming back to Washington on every visit asking, where's the bill?
They would very much appreciate a framework. They don't want it to be too heavy-handed. That is where they part ways with Dario Amodei, who actually favors and put out a blog post yesterday defending open weight AI models, but also urging mandatory safety testing and reviews of models before they're released. So there is not complete harmony within the industry, although there is a broad-based and broad-scale defense of this open weight, the open weight side of the debate here. It will come down in a lot of ways to the devil being in the details. You'll see NVIDIA pushing for less controls, fewer controls on exports of its AI chips, whereas you will certainly hear Anthropic saying we need more controls on those chips, keep them out of China's hands. OpenAI, how it plays that, it's probably not as high an item on their agenda, for example.
If you bump into Jensen,
this week, let us know.
Absolutely.
I want the story.
We'll see if we can get him in here, Joe.
These two are going to be out later together. I know it. You see, when
he may like that idea of a techno Rushmore. I'll run that by him.
Dario would be the other one, right? You get three faces on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, we need a fourth.
Someone will email me. I forgot someone. But yeah, thank you, Shep, as always. You should see Shep when he puts the leather jacket on and he's out on the town with Jensen Wong. You have no idea. So the point that I was making earlier, it's kind of ironic timing, I guess, or strange timing, that we're talking about this revolutionary technology. No one's pulling back. There's nothing but money. China's going, we're going, the race is on. But when you look at Wall Street, we can't get away from AI fast enough. That's why we wanted to spend just a moment with Mike Regan, Bloomberg's managing editor for equities, to figure out how long this might go on for. Mike, it's great to see you. We've got some important earnings, I know, this week when we consider the hyperscalers. We're going to be hearing from Microsoft. We'll be hearing from Meta. I don't know if that helps to answer some of the questions people have. There's a little bit of a bid under NVIDIA since we've just been talking about them, but especially these chip stocks. My gosh, look out below.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And then we had to hit that threshold today where it looked like the NASDAQ 100 was actually going to enter a technical correction of a drop of about 10% from its last high. I think at this point, there's a lot of people are just trying to sort out exactly what we're looking at. Is it just a correction in, a so-called crowded trade, an overheated sector, or is it the beginning of something more? And, obviously, when the momentum shifts to the downside, a lot of these stories that we see in the news tend to have an exaggerated reaction. There was a report in the Information earlier this week that China was making some progress in building their own certain type of chip-making machines, which really hit a lot of the chip-making stocks pretty heavy. So, for now, I think you're right that, Microsoft, Meta, and then tomorrow we'll get Amazon and Apple will fill in a lot of gaps in information that investors want to see. That said, Alphabet's earnings report last week is still causing some indigestion among a lot of people because, that was their first negative free cash flow since they went public. So, it just shows you how much they are really betting on this AI CapEx to be the future and really illustrates how much is at stake if those returns on investments aren't up to par, up to investors' expectations.
Just can't seem to spend enough at the moment. I guess it says a lot. I was joking earlier when the hot stocks in the market are Sherwin-Williams and Coca-Cola. That kind of informs the mentality of where the trader is today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, throughout this sort of sell-off in the semiconductor and the big NASDAQ stocks over the last month or so, the overall S&P and the Dow averages have been supported because it's almost more like a rotation into some of the sectors that were left behind because of all this AI mania. So looking at the S&P 500, it's really not that far off of its last record in early June, even though, as I said, this NASDAQ 100 is, teetering on the brink of a correction right now. So it is, in large part, a story about more of a rotation out of these really high-flying tech and semiconductor stocks and into some of the left-behind sectors. The economy is still going pretty good, and people are still fairly bullish about stocks as an asset class. They're just kind of shifting their poker chips around the table.
Including software. My gosh, even Salesforce is up 5% while Micron is down 9%. That's the rotation even within tech, I guess, that we're seeing here. Mike, come back and talk to us about some of these reports coming up. We should compare notes by the end of the week and see where we are following some of these big hyperscalers. Do we call them Mag 7 anymore? I don't know if that applies.
Sure.
Mike, it's good to see you. We'll do that for the sake of this broadcast, indeed. Bloomberg News, managing editor for equities, the big boss on the markets. Here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. Hey, Kaylee's back today. She'll be coming in around 1 for the second hour of Balance of Power. And we have a lot more to follow, including our political panel. A good one today, Jeannie Shanzano and Sarah Chamberlain on what in the world is happening on Capitol Hill. Stay with us right here on Bloomberg.
Faster, smarter, better. This is Boston's best source for news on the FM dial. Bloomberg 92.9. Coming up, the latest market-moving headlines from Bloomberg. First, an update from our partners at ABC News.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. On Capitol Hill, late Senator Lindsey Graham lies in state in the rotunda with fellow lawmakers, friends, and family and dignitaries paying their respects today. GOP Senate leader John Thune at a ceremony called him a friend and a fierce advocate of global allies, including Israel and Ukraine.
Lindsey was a towering figure here in the Senate and on the international stage. His leadership on national security and our national defense is well known. I traveled with Lindsey all over the world as part of congressional delegations, and I saw firsthand just how much he was respected by our allies.
Graham's funeral this afternoon, held at the National Cathedral. President Trump will deliver the eulogy. Consumer confidence slid this month, with U.S. and Iran hostilities fueling concerns over gas prices and stubborn inflation. Cleanup continues in hard-hit Wisconsin after powerful tornadoes ripped through the town of Menasha. This is ABC News.
Hi, I'm David Gura, inviting you to join us for Bloomberg This Weekend. Catch the show Saturdays and Sundays starting at 7 a.m. Make Bloomberg #1 on your weekend to-do list. Watch and listen on Bloomberg Radio, TV, and the Bloomberg Business app.
Don't wait for headlines. Watch the news unfold in real time at Bloomberg's New Economy Forum, live from New Delhi, October 13th through the 15th, as global leaders come together to tackle the biggest issues shaping our future, from geopolitics and global trade to technology and the world's new balance of power. You'll have a front row seat to the conversations that matter most. Watch live at BloombergNewEconomy.com. That's BloombergNewEconomy.com.
Hi, Jose Minchero here, Head of Portfolio Analytics Research at Bloomberg. Are you looking for a risk model that adapts quickly to today's volatile markets? One capable of providing accurate risk forecasts and efficient optimized portfolios, all while mitigating those pesky correlations between idiosyncratic and factor returns? If so, look no further than the Bloomberg Mac 3 risk model. Visit Bloomberg.com/risk-modeling to learn more.
You research your investments, you analyze markets, but have you researched your broker? For the past 3 years, Interactive Brokers' individual clients averaged a 24.3% annual return, beating the S&P 500. Lower costs, competitive rates, and access to 170-plus global markets help investors keep more of what they earn. The broker you choose matters. Interactive Brokers, member SIPC. Learn more at ibkr.com/performance.
Bloomberg Radio, on demand and in your podcast feed.
On the latest edition of the Wall Street Week podcast, we talk with the woman who negotiated for Canada to come up with the current USMCA. Krista Freeland gives us her perspective from north of the border on the latest round of Trump tariffs, specifically directed at her home country. What's the best way to negotiate with President Trump over tariffs? Accommodate or retaliate?
Something that I never thought I would see in my lifetime is that we are now seeing that more Canadians see the United States as a threat than China. Canadians, for the first time in this polling, see China as a more reliable partner than the United States. Communist, authoritarian China, a country that just a few years ago illegally imprisoned 2 innocent Canadians, ironically to punish Canada for honoring our extradition treaty with the United States. Yet this country, Canadians feel, is more reliable and trustworthy than the United States.
You wrote a piece about this problem of accommodation versus retaliation in dealing with the Trump administration on trade. If indeed the Canadian government decided we have to go the retaliation route, what sorts of levers does it have?
I do think that the lesson that the Trump administration is teaching the world, that the only countries that ultimately get to a good place with this administration are countries that stand strong. You know, I think the best approach to this administration is do not escalate. Don't look for a fight. If you can find an area to agree on, that's great. But do not back down.
Hear the full conversation on the latest edition of the Bloomberg Wall Street Week podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Plus, listen anytime on the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
It's 1240 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. The Dow, the S&P, yes, NASDAQ as well, all pushing higher. The NASDAQ 100 index, so does remain lower. Weakness in tech, specifically semiconductors. Right now, the NASDAQ 100 index down 0.6%. The SOX, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange Semiconductor Index, hit hard, down 4%. Semis selling off. The S&P, however, overcoming earlier losses, now at 74.42. S&P up 29. That is a gain of 0.4%. Dow Industrials rallying, surging 637 points on the Dow, up by 1.2%. Again, the NASDAQ 100 index down 0.6. The 2-year yield 4.26%, with the 10-year 4.59%. The 30-year 5.08%. Gold down 0.8%, 4,042 the ounce. A major sell-off in crude. West Texas Intermediate down 5.8%, now 77.82 a barrel. Barrel of Brent crude at 82.55, down by 6.6%. So it is an up day for the S&P 500 index, a down day for semis. Lots of cross currents for markets, including oil, geopolitics, tech earnings, and yes, the Federal Reserve. Amy Wu Silverman is head of derivative strategy at RBC Capital Markets and on surveillance this morning. She told us she's looking ahead to the midterm elections.
Midterms isn't going to be about gas prices. It's not necessarily going to be about inflation. It's going to be about anti-AI. I remember in one meeting we step in and the first thing the client asks is, what do you think of this data center moratorium? What does that mean? And so the point I'm trying to make is, look, what if anti-AI sentiment becomes more than just an election story? It becomes a market story.
Amy Wu Silverman of RBC Capital Markets. And speaking of AI, Meta Platforms and BlackRock plan to build a 1 gigawatt data center complex in Texas. It will cost about $14 billion to develop. That's a lot of juice. A gigawatt, enough power for between 700,000 and 1 million typical homes. Meta Platforms, which reports tomorrow, up now by 0.3%, but BlackRock up by 3.2%. Recapping, S&P 500 index up 0.4%. That, Joe Matthew, is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Okay, Charlie, thank you, sir. He'll be back coming up at the top of the hour, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll see where the rotation is at that point here in what has been a fraught market full of winners. The indexes are hanging in, but it's also got a lot of losers under the hood. And if you're tied to that AI trade, we see you. We know it can be scary. Again, Charlie will have more at 1 as we welcome our global television audience to the broadcast. We're going to have our eyes on Capitol Hill later on this evening. It's not just what's happening at the White House today, and that's awfully important as the president meets with Zelensky, Netanyahu, on the way to the funeral, of course, for Senator Lindsey Graham. That will start at 2 p.m. Eastern up at National Cathedral. It'll be very important stuff that happens afterward on the Hill. Zelensky today is meeting with the full membership of the United States Senate, and this evening there will be a vote, we're told, on the Russia sanctions bill that will carry Lindsey Graham's name. Remember, just a couple of weeks ago, following his untimely and shocking death, we were asking a lot of lawmakers about whether it should, in fact, carry his name. And indeed, this legislation, a bipartisan bill, has been formally named the Lindsey O. Graham Sanctioning Russia Act. Zelensky is going to be addressing senators at 6 p.m. Imagine the swell of support that this could gather after hearing from him. And that's where we start with our political panel. Bloomberg Politics contributor Jeannie Shanzano is with us, our Democratic analyst and democracy visiting fellow at Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center. With me here in our bureau is Republican strategist Sarah Chamberlain, the president CEO of the Republican Main Street Partnership. Ladies, great to have you both, and thank you so much for joining. Sarah, do you suspect this passes with even unanimous support? What kind of a vote?
I don't know about that. It would pass overwhelmingly, though, without question.
There's been some Democratic concern about the tariff element here.
There has been.
That won't hold this back.
I don't believe it will. I mean, for a couple of reasons. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the president is going to be addressing them. Mm-hmm. Ukraine needs it. And with the final tribute to Lindsey Graham. Yeah, right. I mean, he was friends with a lot of Democrats.
Well, that's right. You feel the same way, Jeannie? Is there any way to get something over the finish line more powerful than having someone like Zelensky speak to membership?
Yeah, I think it does pass. Listen, there's 62 sponsors of this bill, 22 of which are Democrats. So I think even without Zelensky going to the Hill, it would pass. I think what they're trying to do is move the House to take this up once it does pass, which is, I think, going to require the administration stepping in and pushing for it. But to your point, there are very real concerns here. Since we are in Odyssey fever, Joe, there are many Democrats who view this as a Trojan horse of sorts that gives the president enormous, expansive power to tariff. So that is a real concern. There is also concern this is the first time that the U.S. is going to be using tariffs as on secondary countries rather than for trade imbalances, rather as a geopolitical tactic. And then also there is concern about Congress ceding its authority to the White House. And this is a real concern because separation of powers doesn't warrant this. And so, you think about something back in the day like the line item veto. The Supreme Court stepped in and said, no, you can't. You may all want to give that power to the president, but you can't do that. It's unconstitutional. So I think there's a long way to go here. Does it pass today? Probably. But there's a lot of questions about this.
Well, I think we just heard from Jeannie why this likely will not receive a unanimous consent agreement. There was a hope. That's probably not your expectation.
It is not expectation as of right now. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, DC is crazy sometimes, but no, I think it's going to pass overwhelmingly though. And I think that the issues that she just discussed are going to be put aside.
I want to ask you about a couple of confirmation votes that are unfolding here. 6:30 p.m., a vote to confirm Jake Clayton to be our next DNI. There was a lot of concern following this hearing about, who won the 2020 election. Some Democrats, including Mark Warner, were aghast, but he has the votes.
Yes, he has the votes.
To be confirmed. So that's done.
Yes, that should be done.
And then we move on to Todd Blanche. This one's a little more complicated.
Much more complicated.
Enter Tom Tillis, John Cornyn. They want a guarantee on this anti-weaponization fund.
They do, and I don't know if they're going to get it. It's going to be interesting to see. They want it in writing.
Yeah.
They want the guarantee in writing. He has verbally said it, but they want it in writing. So we'll see how this plays out.
This is the so-called YOLO caucus. If that, I mean, do we not end up with an attorney general? Do we not renew FISA in that world?
Well, FISA is not going to be renewed anyway till the fall.
Yeah.
So we could go a little bit. He would still be acting attorney general. So we'll see. It's good. That's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
And Trump kind of caused this problem himself.
That's right.
To be honest.
It's Tillis and Cornyn calling, Jeannie. What's going to happen to Todd Blanche?
Regardless, he does remain acting, but of course he wants to be confirmed. I think if history is any guide, these two guys may fold, but it's hard to tell at this point. We know John Cornyn is very upset by what Trump did in his primary. But, stepping back a bit, they're absolutely right. This should be in writing. They're absolutely right to demand it. And to add another wrinkle here, you've got the Democrats who sent Todd Blanche and the Justice Department a letter requesting information on the subpoenas that the DOJ issued to New York Times reporters. And the fact that may not have been proper protocol and procedure, as the federal judge just noted, before they withdrew the subpoena. So they're getting a lot of pressure on this Blanche nomination from all corners.
Interesting. Just seeing a headline cross the terminal via Axios. Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, meeting with Howard Lutnick amid China scrutiny, a meeting that we have been waiting for, just weren't sure on the timing, and apparently they are behind closed doors right now. I don't know if we can hear from Andy Bashir, guys. I should have asked you to do this. When Aaron Rupert puts you on Twitter, you're in trouble. I just noticed the clip from our interview with the governor of Kentucky last night made the Rupert Twitter feed here, and it's because he came in pretty hot. It's the first time I've had a chance to talk with him about Mitch McConnell. And I'd like to hear from both of our panelists on this once we hear from the governor, who sent a letter, and it's actually a couple of letters at this point, asking Mitch McConnell, of course, the former Republican leader in the Senate, now part of the rank and file, I guess is a better way to describe him, to come out with more information about his well-being. He's been in the hospital since June 14th. He's missed 38 votes in the Senate. Here's the governor, a Democratic governor, we should note, of Kentucky.
Well, I think that the Senate needs to take some form of action, and that can be in simply providing the type of evidence that people deserve, that he still has the capacity. You know, if anybody watching this missed 45 days of their job, they would be expected to call their boss, explain why they've been out and what their prognosis is to return, and to do it themselves verbally to that boss. That's all we're asking. The boss here are the people of Kentucky. We have asked this time, if he is not going to respond, for his staff to step up and to be honest and transparent.
Wow. When you've got a governor talking like that, Sarah, what's this going to lead to? How long can this go on for?
Well, first of all, I think he's running for president.
Well,
so I think that's
worst
why
kept
he's
secret,
out
right?
there, right?
Yeah.
But there is no rule against this. I mean, and Mitch McConnell, I mean, former leader, he's due the respect. I mean, he is very much still alive.
Is that disrespectful behavior
I think
or
it's
rhetoric,
a little
you
bit
think?
disrespectful.
Yeah.
I mean, why doesn't he just go to the hospital? Why doesn't he try to do it privately? Why is he out there doing it publicly? Because he's trying to make a point and run for president. And, you know, the August date is ticking quickly here. You know, once
we talked about that.
We did last time I was on. If you get past that August date, there's nothing you do. Mitch McConnell can step down and the seat stays open until.
Well, and Andy
election.
Beshear thinks that's part of the gamble here, that they're trying to run out the clock so he cannot call a special election.
And that very well they could be, but I would argue in a special election you still would probably get a Republican. You'd get Andy Barr a little bit quicker.
Well,
so I don't think it really matters, even in a special, unless Massey decided to try to play spoiler in that.
I'm not sure how that would go, but we're going to do a whole
but
special on that with you if it happens. Jeannie, what's going on here? Are you buying these proof of life photos, videos, etc.? Does Mitch McConnell need to provide more?
You really hope that they would. The problem is there's nothing to force him to do that except for the bully pulpit, which Governor Beshear came on. And Joe, I can't believe, I'm going to look and see how many millions of views this got. These are very popular when they get posted. So between this and the Rand Paul, you're racking up the millions and billions, Joe. Yeah.
I know.
But, you know,
Rand Paul was at 1.8 million or something the last time I looked. Jeannie, why is this resonating, though? Why is Andy Beshear resonating? Is it because there's so much mystery surrounding Mitch McConnell, or there are so many knives out for him?
Well, it's a little bit of both. But let's be honest, you know, to the voters of his state, they deserve to have representation in Congress. What is going on? These people are disappearing for months at a time with absolutely no real connection with their voters and their constituents. You know, Americans don't love the Congress, news to both of you. So you want to give them the best of you. And if you can't serve, you shouldn't be there. And I think Andy Beshear is right. He's the governor of the state. He should be allowed, if Mitch McConnell can't serve, to call this special election. And by the way, why are they for a special election? If Republicans are going to win anyways, go ahead and call it. So I think Andy Beshear is right. And Joe, I think he should come on today and every day and keep screaming this on Bloomberg until he gets an answer.
If the clicks keep coming. You know, when you consider the heat that Joe Biden got, this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, right?
Right. I mean, Joe Biden arguably maybe shouldn't have served his entire term.
Well, I mean imagine if he checked out for 45 days and we didn't know where he was. There would have been a massive outcry.
There would have been, but the argument is, was he all there at the end mentally?
Yeah,
I mean, so who knows?
Well, we've got a lot of questions.
There is no rules around this.
Yeah.
I mean, Congress is very special in that because the governor is right. If we did this in our real jobs, we would get questioned. But in Congress, both the House and the Senate. You can't do that
at the partnership, obviously.
I cannot.
Tom Kaine had a very similar experience where there was nothing anybody could do. By the way, that seems to have calmed down dramatically.
Yeah,
no
he's
one's even
back
talking about
and
this
doing
now.
very well. He's a member of Main
dealt
Street.
with a bout of depression, which he talked about on the House floor. You know, once this is all done, Cece, that's hysterical. I'm sorry, I got to steal that. Jeannie, when the Tapper tell-all comes out after Mitch McConnell, we'll know what really happened, right?
That's absolutely right. Is that what Cece said? I missed it.
Yeah, Cece's very funny. All right.
She's very good.
With all of this said, we're gonna see sanctions passed tonight. I think we've established here. We're gonna see Jay Clayton confirmed, but Jeannie, Todd Blanche will remain acting Attorney General.
I don't know if he will. Again, if history's any guide, Cornyn and Tillis will fold on this. The Republicans have been doing that a long time. Obviously, things have changed. I hope they don't fold because we all deserve to get that in writing. And why not put it in writing if the president has no interest in acting on it?
Sure. Can we get a day with no drama around here? That's never going to happen, right? All right. I just want to make sure. It's almost August. There are no slow news days. Sarah and Jeannie, thank you so much. Our great panel will be back in our second hour with much more to talk about as we turn to the war in Ukraine. Melinda Harding will be joining us coming up right here on Bloomberg. Make sure to subscribe to the Balance of Power podcast on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Watch us live on YouTube and listen anytime at Bloomberg.com.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Partial sunshine continues across southern New England. There is the risk of a shower or a thunderstorm before the afternoon is over. We're 80 to 85. Scattered showers, thunderstorms tonight. There could be some heavy rain at times, 65 to 70. Showers, thunderstorms tomorrow. They could produce heavy rain, highs only 70 to 75. Leftover showers and storms Thursday, 70 to 75. I'm Rob Carolyn with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Shape the conversation on Bloomberg Radio. Tomorrow, listen for wall-to-wall coverage of big tech earnings as Microsoft, Qualcomm, and Meta report.
This is a blowout quarter.
And now, Bloomberg subscribers can submit questions for our experts. Visit Bloomberg.com/AskRadio to send questions to our hosts.
Earnings kicking into high gear.
Your questions on big tech earnings live on Bloomberg Radio. A subscriber exclusive. Visit Bloomberg.com/AskRadio to join the conversation. Then listen at 4 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio.
The board recommends approving.
Regarding that seat on the committee, we're promoting
to boost quarterly earnings.
Every day, shareholders meet to discuss important matters about the companies you invest in. Now you can easily make your voice heard. Vanguard Investor Choice gives you a say in the companies you invest in. With just a few taps, you can set your proxy voting preference for your index funds. Visit Vanguard.com/investorchoice to learn more. Vanguard investors own shares of our index funds, which own shares of the companies they invest in. Available for Vanguard index funds that participate in Investor Choice. Vanguard Marketing Corporation distributor.
Well, it's official. My friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data. And because they're my friends, they trust me. As for the rest of you, well, Pure Talk understands that even though you might like me, you're not just going to take my word for it, nor should you. For that reason, and for a very limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited plan that normally sells for $65 a month. Think of it like a test drive, a super simple way to save $150 while you kick the tires on Pure Talk's blazing fast network, and a fine way to see for yourself why I switched from big wireless, along with a few 100,000 of my closest friends. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and be connected to Pure Talk's friendly U.S. customer service team. Again, dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and let the savings begin.
A new chapter in global growth is being written, and much of it is happening in Africa.
Africans need to invest.
There are deals to be done and business to be won.
I'm Jennifer Zabasaja. Every week on the Next Africa podcast, we track capital flows and political shifts shaping the continent's future.
The digitalization of Africa is going to power its growth.
Ridding the world of something like HIV is possible.
Population growth is so enormous in Africa.
Listen to Next Africa on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Why wait through boring and irrelevant topics on AM radio when you can listen to Bloomberg 92.9 FM for stories that matter? Breaking global news and the context you need. Bloomberg 92.9. Faster, smarter, better.
This is WBOS HD1 Brookline, Boston.
WNBP Newburyport.
W291 CC Haverhill. W221 EE Topsfield.
Programming paid for by Bloomberg.
Live from Washington, D.C., this is Balance of Power with Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines.
President Trump considers additional support for Ukraine as Washington remembers Lindsey Graham. Welcome to the Tuesday edition as the president meets today with Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House, as well as Benjamin Netanyahu, both in town for Graham's funeral, set to begin a short time from now. I'm Joe Matthew alongside Kaylee Line. She's back today in Washington. Kaylee, these meetings are focusing the president's attention directly on the two hot wars underway.
Yeah, although there does seem to be, at least for now, once again, a detente between the U.S. and Iran. No active firing is taking place in and around the Strait of Hormuz. This has been the case for several days now, and the oil market is reflecting that as we are seeing a plunge in prices. Brent crude now back below $84 a barrel. All that's to say, though, that it's not clear how the diplomatic process is going to move forward in that war. Meantime, in the Ukraine war, it's not just the White House meeting that Zelensky took while in Washington today after the funeral of Lindsey Graham at the National Cathedral. He's going to head to Capitol Hill to meet with senators who are getting set to vote on a Russia sanctions package.
Which will carry Lindsey Graham's name officially, something we'll be tracking a bit later on in the day. It is expected to pass easily. Unclear if they'll get the unanimous consent that some were looking for, Kaylee. But this is a very emotional day in Washington with this service taking place, and the way that it might feed into geopolitics is going to be something to watch.
Yeah, it's very unique to see an individual memorialized, not just here in Washington among a domestic political audience, but with so many world leaders in attendance as well. It's not just limited to the Israeli prime minister or Ukrainian president. And we'll be covering that for you throughout this hour. But we also want to check in on the markets. As I mentioned, oil prices are dropping. That means yields are lower, but there's a whole lot happening in the equity market, including with semiconductors. So let's get a check on that now as we turn to Charlie Pellet in New York. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, thank you very much, Kaylee Lines. Welcome back. You hit on two of the four major themes today, oil and semis selling off. But in addition to that, we've also got tech earnings coming up for the Mag 7 over the next couple of days. And yes, there's a Fed meeting underway right now. Decision tomorrow, 2 o'clock Wall Street time. Going to begin with crude oil. You mentioned the sell-off in WTI, $78.81 a barrel now. Crude down 4.6%. Barrel of Brent, $83.59, lower now by 5.4%. Bottom line here, oil lower, stocks higher, but semis are a major weak spot. The S&P 500 index up 38. We now stand at 74.51. That is a gain of 0.5%. The Dow up 1.3% right now. Among some of the Dow names, Sherwin-Williams, Salesforce, IBM, and Boeing all moving higher. Sherwin-Williams, by the way, after earnings, it is climbing now by just about 8.2%. NASDAQ up 0.2%, but the NASDAQ 100 index, the weak spot today, down 0.5%. Semis moving lower. The SOX, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange Semiconductor Index, down now by 3.6%. Your 2-year at 4.26%, with the 10-year currently trading at 4.59%, and the 30-year 5.08%. Again, all of this ahead of the Fed decision tomorrow and Kevin Warsh's news conference, 2:30 p.m. Yeah, count on Bloomberg. We'll have it for you live. Spot gold now at 4,037 the ounce, down 0.9%, and West Texas Intermediate crude down 4.6%, 78.78 a barrel. Weakness in semis, Micron down 8.4%, Intel now down by 5%, Advanced Micro Devices lower by 7%, bucking the trend. Nvidia, that stock higher by just about 0.6%. Lots going on. Joe and Kaylee, that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Lots going on indeed, and Charlie Pellet's on top of it all. Thank you, Charlie, as always, watching the markets for us from New York. As we've told you here in Washington, it is also a day in which a lot is going on, all of it taking place on the day of the late Senator Lindsey Graham's funeral. There were, of course, some ceremonies at the Capitol building earlier today, and there will be a full memorial service for him taking place at the National Cathedral this afternoon. And in attendance at that service will be heads of state, not just leaders of Congress, in which Lindsey Graham spent so many years. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, of course, is here in Washington, as we've told you, as is the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, both of whom met with President Trump at the White House earlier today. Those meetings have now concluded, and the messaging, at least from the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, while brief in nature, Joe, was that they went well.
Yeah, really something to watch the images if you're with us on Bloomberg TV or on YouTube. The ceremony at the Capitol resolving to a memorial service that'll start about an hour from now at National Cathedral. That's why they had to get those meetings in early at the White House. And we're lucky to have Skylar Woodhouse with us, Bloomberg White House correspondent, with her eyes on both conflicts and both meetings today. Skylar, thanks for coming to see us here in our Washington bureau. The Zelensky meeting we'll seize on first. That actually went pretty quickly here, and he's got a couple of big asks that sound familiar, including more defensive systems, but more support from Washington, period, as we work our way up to a sanctions vote later today. The stars appear to be aligning for Zelensky here.
Yeah, President Zelensky, he said that the meeting with President Trump was, quote, a good meeting. So only time will tell to see, how well those discussions went today. I think for reporters who were over at the White House today, they definitely were, eager to get in the room to ask questions. And the meeting did not open up today, nor did the meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So I still think we're waiting for some of those true details, especially from President Donald Trump, and waiting to see if we'll get any sort of readout to learn more about those fine terms and what we can see going forward and how this relates to that sanctions bill.
Yeah, and we'll be watching the True Social feed, certainly. Skylar, it's interesting as we consider these two meetings and the position the leaders find themselves in relation to President Trump. There was a time in the not so recent past or distant past where Zelensky seemed to be really on the outs with not just the president, but others in the administration, including Vice President J.D. Vance. It does seem that that relationship has gotten warmer at the same time that for Prime Minister Netanyahu on his 8th visit to this White House has been kind of publicly feuding with the president. Do we have any sense as to whether Netanyahu was able to ingratiate himself a bit more back into the fold?
Yeah, well, I think one thing that's interesting is while President Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu were meeting, we did get some photos of the two leaders, of the leaders or the officials on both sides. It's trying to sort of depict maybe a cozy environment. The two leaders were smiling. But, I think it'll be interesting to obviously see what that actually means and how, the two leaders are going to take the next step with the Iran war. Obviously, leading up to this meeting, there were a lot of reports and so forth around the president using some heavy language as it related to President Benjamin Netanyahu in phone calls and conversations. So I think there's a lot of questions still swirling on what the relationship is like and how it will be going forward.
Interesting analysis from Bloomberg's Dan Williams earlier, who saw those photos that were put out from the Israelis. Pete Hegseth was in there, I believe, along with other officials, suggesting this is a meeting of import. Whether this is a détente of some sort or a breakup remains to be seen. The president's going to speak at the service today. Are we going to hear from him at National Cathedral?
Yeah, I believe he will be speaking later today. It'll be interesting to see what sort of direction he goes.
But
obviously,
also his mindset as he says farewell to a friend who was pushing both of these causes. Right?
Absolutely, and especially former Senator Lindsey Graham. I mean, he was coming back from where was he? He was
Kyiv.
He was in Ukraine. So it'll be interesting to see how what kind of tone the president strikes today, and if he will reveal maybe any details from the meeting with Zelensky today. But certainly it'll be one thing to watch for sure as the president sort of says goodbye to a close ally of his.
Watching Truth Social.
Indeed we will. All right, Bloomberg, Skylar Woodhouse helping us cover the White House. Thank you so much. And as Skylar mentioned, it was Ukraine that Lindsey Graham had just returned from just prior to his death. And it's on Ukraine we want to focus now as we turn to Melinda Herring, who is a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and is back with us on Bloomberg TV and radio. Melinda, welcome back. And we have a lot we want to discuss with you in terms of the actual conflict in Ukraine. But I would wonder your take first on the legacy of the late Senator Lindsey Graham and what he meant for Ukraine, for Ukrainian leadership, given his relationship with Volodymyr Zelensky, and how he possibly, via the sanctions bill that he helped author and negotiate around and push forward, could alter the course of this war.
Thanks for having me back on. So I think Senator Graham would be delighted today. He went to Ukraine 10 times since the war started. His last trip was to Ukraine. His heart was in Kiev. He had a close relationship with Volodymyr Zelensky. And I think it's important to say that Lindsey Graham wasn't just focused on Ukraine. He cared about free people around the world. So he had a heartbeat for the struggle for global freedom. But Ukraine was very, very special to him. And we see his death has released a lot lot of energy. There's a strong desire to do something to honor his hard work. There's been a desire to pass another bill that would sanction Russia, and it's named after the late senator, and it looks like that's going to pass on Capitol Hill today.
So what's that going to mean, Melinda? Welcome back. I just wonder the impact of that sanctions bill passing, because it does appear to be on a glide slope here. Whether or not it receives a unanimous consent agreement is another matter. But the president's going to have some new tools here. There are questions about the extent to which he will use them. What do you believe?
Right. Joe, so there is a question about whether he will use them, how good they are. They're not a 10. I'm not going to come on here and look you in the eye and say that the bill's fabulous, but it's a lot better than nothing. So remember, this is an administration that has done nothing on Ukraine since it came back to office. So this is fantastic. But I think more significantly, it will unlock the EU and push the EU to release its next package of sanctions. That's why it's significant.
I see.
Well, so then when we consider the significance of the decision making that this will force Vladimir Putin into, Melinda, if at all, if not, even if it is just a symbol that the U.S. is willing to stand by Ukraine in a more firm manner than it perhaps, to your point, has so far during this administration, where would you be looking for signs that it is starting to affect the behavior of the Kremlin and the way in which Putin is conducting himself as this war continues?
Great question. So it's not a great day in Moscow. There's a lot of things that are bothering Vladimir Putin right now. The first thing that's bothering him are Ukraine's long-range strikes. Ukraine is getting better at hitting oil refineries. It is causing the prices to go up. It's causing fear in people. There's elite fights within Moscow between the inner circle around Putin. So things are not rosy in Moscow, and he has upcoming elections. He also doesn't have enough people. We're seeing pictures of all the heads of state in Washington, and the Finnish president is here. And he's been very, very clear that Russia has a math problem. So Russia does not have enough soldiers to continue this war, and Putin cannot engage in a big mobilization, or he has a political problem. Right now, the ratio is every 5 soldiers that are killed on the Russian side, 1 Ukrainian soldier is killed. So things are not rosy in Moscow, and I don't think people realize that Putin is actually in a bit of a pinch right now.
Pretty big score for Zelensky on his way over to the United States. He stopped by the UK and posted from the Portsmouth Naval Base in the United Kingdom that the UK has decided to share what they call its Stone Cloak technology. That's a system that jams Russian air defense systems, to your point, allowing Ukraine to go deeper into Russian territory. And it begs the question, Melinda, the extent to which Ukraine is relying on the United States as opposed to its European partners.
So, Joe, great question. Since Trump has come back into office, the United States has not given any more military aid. It has delivered some military aid that the Biden administration arranged, but it hasn't given anything new. So we've been sitting on our hands since Trump came back into office. However, the U.S. is still providing intel support, and that's a really big deal. The Ukrainians rely on that intel support for these long-range strikes, so that has to continue in order for Ukraine to prosecute the war.
So the intel support, the licensing of Patriot missiles, which we know were discussed today, Melinda, what else does Ukraine then need from the United States?
So we really need to see the United States go and put another assistance bill into place. The United States hasn't given a large amount of money to Ukraine since 2024. It was April 2024. Ukraine needs more funds in order to keep the war in place. But its most immediate need is air defense. So just in the month of July, the New York Times calculated how many ballistic missiles have been sent into Ukraine. It's 117. And they don't have enough Patriots. Patriots are the only things that can down these ballistic missiles. And just to remind your viewers, ballistic missiles are hitting schools, churches, and ordinary citizens. And we're seeing the number of civilians at an all-time high this month as a result of that increased pressure with these ballistic rockets in Ukraine.
Wow. Missiles for the Patriots are needed literally every day. The quote from Zelensky in a post on X. Melinda, to your point, he was talking with the Finnish president Alexander Stubb, also here for the services today, where they discussed the prospect of diplomacy. Zelensky suggesting that important meetings for next month are being prepared. What's he talking about?
So what he's talking about is there's going to be a renewed effort to bring a peace agreement to the war in Ukraine, finally. And I think we're going to see Witkoff and Kushner come to Kiev. So they have been invited multiple times. They refuse to go. Witkoff in particular doesn't want to go because, Joe, there are no airports that work in Ukraine. You have to fly into Warsaw or fly into Moldova and then take a car or a train. And it's very uncomfortable. And Witkoff's not a young man. So General Kellogg used to make this trip all the time. But our chief negotiators on Ukraine haven't been to the country. That's a big problem. So I think out of this meeting, it was a very good meeting in the Oval Office. We see Zelensky and Trump, warm smiles, shaking hands, and it feels like we're back in a good place. But I think we're going to see more emphasis on negotiations, and I think the president is going to send his chief negotiators there. And I think the Laura Loomer visit definitely helped with that. But that wasn't the only thing that has set us in this place.
Yeah, Laura Loomer now on the side of Ukraine is one of the more remarkable political evolutions that we've witnessed as of late. Melinda, I also want to ask you, you mentioned how it's not a great day in Moscow, that Putin is facing difficulties domestically. I wonder if we should be considering what domestic pressures President Zelensky is also facing. He fired his popular defense minister. There's been turnover in Ukraine's military leadership. What is the impact of that?
Great question. Yes. So last week, there was big news in Kiev. The very popular defense minister, his name is Mikhailo Fedorov, and he's 35 years old. He's been in office since 2019. He's been promoted. He's a rock star. He's responsible for Ukraine's transformation. So if you take your phone, you can register your baby online. You can get married and divorced online in Ukraine. It's even better and faster than Estonia. And it's because of this defense minister.
Wow.
So he's fabulous. And no one understands why he was fired. So Zelensky didn't really answer the question. And there have been protests across the country. He's a nerd. I know him. He's not someone who toots his own horn. He doesn't speak English. He's from the sticks of Zaporizhia. He's from occupied Ukraine. But his trust numbers were growing, and Zelensky doesn't like to be overshadowed. We've seen this movie over and over again. You know, it happened with his commander-in-chief, with Zaluzhny, and he sent Zaluzhny to London. But he got rid of Fedorov because there was a real conflict between the Minister of Defense, Fedorov, and the Commander-in-Chief, Syrskyi. Syrskyi was old school. He was in his 60s. They called him a dinosaur. They called him the butcher of Kiev. He wanted to mobilize as many people and fight in sort of old Soviet tactics. And Fedorov wanted to use technology. And he wanted to revolutionize the armed forces. And the two of these guys couldn't communicate. And Zelensky said that he had to be in the room in order to get them to communicate. So Zelensky's defense is, I don't have time for this. I had to fix this problem. Syrskyi, the commander-in-chief, has been fired. Fedorov is no longer part of the government, and they're still negotiating, but there's still protests. So watch this space.
She's an encyclopedia on this stuff and has been to Kyiv countless times, unlike the negotiating team. Melinda, it's great to have you back. We'll see what comes from today's meeting and from the services that will follow. And we'll have an update on the sanctions, the Russia sanctions vote, likely tomorrow, as that's going to happen much later in the day, into the evening, following Zelensky's address to senators. I'm Joe Matthew alongside Kaylee Lyons in Washington. Thanks again to Melinda Herring at the Atlantic Council. We'll assemble our political panel next. We've got a good one today. Jeannie Shanzano and Sarah Chamberlain on the way in as we turn our attention to the memorial service and the votes that will follow, only here on Bloomberg. Make sure to subscribe to the Balance of Power podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Look for the show. We'll be there. Listen anytime at our website. It's Bloomberg.com.
Shape the conversation on Bloomberg Radio. Tomorrow, listen for wall-to-wall coverage of big tech earnings as Microsoft, Qualcomm, and Meta report.
This is a blowout quarter.
And now, Bloomberg subscribers can submit questions for our experts. Visit Bloomberg.com/AskRadio to send questions to our hosts.
Earnings kicking into high gear.
Your questions on big tech earnings live on Bloomberg Radio. A subscriber exclusive. Visit Bloomberg.com/AskRadio to join the conversation. Then listen at 4 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio.
Doug. Limu and I created a trick to help you remember that you can customize your car insurance and save with Liberty Mutual. You see, the shirts Limu and I wear are yellow, and yellow is the color of lemons, and lemons grow on trees, and trees provide oxygen, and oxygen helps us breathe, and breathing is how you live, and you can live more life when you save money by customizing your car insurance. I agree, Limu. It's really quite simple. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You've still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight illnesses like pneumococcal pneumonia and RSV. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and can help protect you from getting really sick. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. See more at PfizerForAll.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Is life insurance still on your list from earlier this year? Now is the perfect time to just get it done. A buddy told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I added this to my list this year and got it done. I called SelectQuote and was shocked at how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $18 a month. My wife's also 40 and her $5,000 policy was only $16 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, no medical exam was required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Checking this off my list felt great, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-280-5858 for your free quote today. That's 1-800-280-5858. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-280-5858. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Partial sun, but there's the potential for some showers and thunderstorms before the afternoon is over. 80 to 85. Low pressure will bring us showers and thunderstorms tonight and possibly some heavy rain at 65 to 70. Showers and thunderstorms could produce heavy downpours tomorrow. Highs are 70 to 75. Few showers and maybe a thunderstorm Thursday, 70 to 75. I'm Rob Carolyn with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
The news doesn't stop on the weekends, and now neither do we. This is Lisa Mateo. Join us on Bloomberg this weekend. Watch and listen to the new show Saturdays and Sundays starting at 7 a.m. on Bloomberg Radio, TV, and the Bloomberg Business app.
It's 1:21 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. We've got a stock market rally underway for the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ higher by under 0.1%, but the weakness remains in big tech names. The NASDAQ 100 index is now lower by 0.6%, particularly weak semiconductors. Hard hit again today with the SOX, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange's semiconductor index. It is down now by 4%. But the S&P up 0.4%. The Dow is surging. Sherwin-Williams giving a big lift to the Dow Industrials. Right now, the Dow up 1.3%. The NASDAQ 100 index down 0.6% again. The SOX bears repeating, down by 4%. All of this with the VIX right around 18. The 2-year at 4.26%, 10-year 4.59%, and the 30-year 5.08%. Gold at $4,038 the ounce. Spot gold down 0.9%. West Texas Intermediate crude down 4.5%. WTI now sliding to $78.90 a barrel. Brent $83.80 barrel of Brent down by 5.2%. Earnings news: JetBlue shares are surging, now higher by 12.6% after earnings. It reaffirmed its full-year outlook and set a new long-term goal for 2028. A strong demand helped offset high fuel prices. All airlines are rallying today. American up by 2.7%, United up 3.1%, Delta up by 2.9%. They're all getting a lift from lower oil prices. Hilton Worldwide reported second quarter earnings that beat expectations. Demand improved across a range of price segments, but Hilton shares down 2.6%. Marriott, which reports August 3rd, Marriott shares down by 1%. Recapping, S&P now higher by 0.4%, with the SOX down 4%, and West Texas Intermediate crude slumping 4.4%. Joe and Kaylee, that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, we appreciate that. Fascinating market today, and we'll have more on the markets when we connect with Charlie once again in about 20 minutes time here on Balance of Power. Thanks for making Balance of Power part of your Tuesday here on Bloomberg TV and radio. We've got our eyes on the White House today, where the president is preparing to leave the mansion and make his way up to National Cathedral for the funeral services, the memorial services being held today for the late Senator Lindsey Graham. He will not be the only world leader there. In fact, it's been a very busy day at the White House. Meetings with Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, as we've told you, and Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. As we wait to hear headlines from those meetings, we want to bring in Tyler Kendall, Bloomberg's Washington correspondent, is on the North Lawn right now as the president prepares to load into those vehicles that you see behind her if you're on Bloomberg TV or on YouTube. To the extent that we understand, Tyler, I know reporters were not inside these meetings. Give us a sense of what was being discussed and how this all plays into the theme of the day, knowing Lindsey Graham supported these efforts to support Ukraine as well as to continue the war effort against Iran.
Right, Joe, there are so many threads that we could tie together at this point as we wait for the motorcade behind me to depart and President Trump's expected remarks later this afternoon at the funeral of Senator Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham's legacy, of course, such a large part of it is the fact that he had the president's ear and was a close advisor when it comes to foreign policy and was considered to be a foreign policy hawk. And you had these two leaders here today meeting at the White House that are here in Washington because they were considered to be such close allies with the senator. On the Ukrainian front, we heard from Zelensky. We haven't quite gotten that official readout from the White House yet, but we know that the Ukrainian president asked the U.S. for more air defense systems, including Patriot missile batteries, something that the president told us reporters yesterday on Air Force One he would like to keep for the U.S. at the moment amid dwindling stockpiles, though the U.S. did grant that general license so that Ukraine can produce their own. The White House told us that today's meetings was part of an effort to kickstart the negotiation process again when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, considering that conflict has and those talks have been stalled at this point for months. And then on the Iranian side, on the Israeli side, we did get some headlines out of Netanyahu's spokesperson saying that the U.S. and Israel are fully aligned when it comes to Iran, and we wait to see what happens next in the conflict. Of course, Joe and Kaylee, as you both know, we are currently in this pause in the fighting as the U.S. says that they are resuming negotiations, but our own reporting indicates it is really Iran and Oman that are talking about a potential deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz before we can even get to any sort of talks about what potential curbs on Iran's nuclear program would look like. All priority right now is on getting commercial shipping back up and running.
All right, Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall live at the White House for us, where again, President Trump is getting set to depart en route to the National Cathedral for the memorial service of the late Senator Lindsey Graham. Tyler, thank you so much. And when it pertains to the memorial service for Lindsey Graham, it of course is not the first ceremony we are seeing on his behalf today. There was also one held at the U.S. Capitol earlier this morning, attended by many of Graham's former colleagues, including his former colleague, now Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, who remembered him this way.
He saw that the Senate, at its very worst, could be a venue for character assassination. But because he loved people, he saw that the Senate, at its very best, could be a deliberative body geared towards persuading people. So I choose to remember Lindsey Graham as a man who could disagree with you without being disagreeable. I choose to remember Lindsey Graham as a person who could fight with you on one issue, but fight for you on another issue.
And as we remember the legacy of Senator Graham, we turn now to our political panel. Jeannie Shanzano is with us, Bloomberg politics contributor, Democratic analyst, and democracy visiting fellow at Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center, joined today by Sarah Chamberlain, a Republican strategist and CEO of the Republican Main Street Partnership. Sarah, to come to you first, as so much of Washington and the world, frankly, remembers Lindsey Graham today, in the United States Senate, in the United States Congress, how many more of Lindsey Graham's ilk are there?
Unfortunately, not many left. I mean, whatever you thought of him, he was really a statesman. He reached across the aisle, worked with the Democrats. It's unfortunately, there's few and far between, especially after this next round of retirements.
Reminds me somewhat of the funeral of the late Senator Ted Kennedy, where you see a lawmaker drawing world leaders as if it was a presidential funeral almost. But the line that we just heard from J.D. Vance really says a lot. A person who could fight with you on one issue, but fight for you on another. Is that why he was friends with so many Democrats?
Absolutely. And he was there in a lot of their issues.
Yeah.
And he was the whisperer to President Trump.
Yes.
I mean, if the Democrats wanted to deliver a message to President Trump and didn't want to go to the media, they went to Lindsey Graham. And Lindsey Graham called up the phone and told the president. He will be very much missed. Whatever you thought about him, he was a very much a senator, a statesman, and both sides will miss him. It's such a tragedy.
Well, and as we consider the liaison he was for Democrats, the liaison he was for Senate leadership with the White House. He also was one for other world leaders. Hence the presence today, Jeannie, of the Ukrainian president, of the Israeli prime minister at his memorial services and in meetings at the White House. How should we consider the way in which the U.S.'s foreign policy and the reaching out to leaders of other democracies that Lindsey Graham did on behalf of the United States, and what will be missing in his absence?
Yeah, I mean, have experienced the loss of probably the most pro-Israeli and pro-Ukrainian voice, certainly in the Senate and Congress as a whole. I'm not sure we know who can take up that mantle, if anyone, particularly his hawkish views, his protection, and his interest in expanding democracy around the world at a time when democracy is very much under fire. You know, we hear voices, perhaps Laura Loomer can take up this with Ukraine. I'm not sure that carries the same weight at this point. And that's who Lindsey Graham was. And it's a very unusual position for a senator to be in. And he was in it because he carefully put himself in that position. If we go back to 2016, he and Donald Trump were great adversaries. And he worked very, very carefully to gin up a relationship with Donald Trump that seems to have been real, because he knew if he had any hope of moving Donald Trump, particularly on foreign policy, and they were complete adversaries in that realm, that he had to be friends with him and be on the golf course with him and be in the room with him. And he did that successfully, maybe to the detriment of Donald Trump at home, but he did that successfully. And we saw that exactly 5 months ago when the president started this war, which Lindsey Graham was a major proponent of.
We're seeing some shots from inside the National Cathedral now, some live video. If you're with us on Bloomberg TV or on YouTube, Benjamin Netanyahu was just speaking with the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth before they took their respective seats here, and seeing Mike Pence spend some time with Volodymyr Zelensky. There is Justice Kavanaugh as well, and Ken vote as we look at some of the Jamieson Greer as well, members of the administration who are in the room here. Sarah, it's not often you put everyone in a room like this on a solemn occasion. The emotions that are going to be felt when the president's speaking is something that everyone here can share. To what extent is this funeral going to help propel the issues that Lindsey Graham supported?
Well, I certainly believe it's going to, I'm sad to say, help Ukraine. I mean, we know that they're meeting this afternoon, early this evening, and I think that we will see more funding going to Ukraine, more support going to Ukraine, because I do think when the president got iffy on Ukraine, it was Lindsey Graham who's like, listen, we have to continue to support Ukraine. Ukraine is very important. We cannot let Russia take over Ukraine, because then the dominoes could fall with other nations.
Well, so as we consider the Russia sanctions bill that the Senate is expected to have votes on tonight, Jeannie, in the name of putting pressure on Russia and supporting Ukraine, we know that there's 62 co-sponsors. That means it's going to get through the Senate, but Zelensky is likely going to try to gin up more support from Democrats who, yes, most likely by and large want to support the Ukrainian cause, but are concerned that the cost of that is giving the president more tariff power, giving that back to him. How ultimately do you think Democrats will come down as a whole on that?
You know, to your point, Kayleigh, the 22 co-sponsors are Democrats. It's 62 are co-sponsoring. That is, a win, even if Zelensky doesn't go up there and advocate for it. I certainly think all the outpouring of love for Lindsey Graham today and remembering him is going to help. But Democrats have a right to be concerned because this gives the president an enormous tool that he hasn't had. It's an enormous expansion of power. What Democrats have tried to do is support Ukraine without giving the president that power. And of course, it cedes power from Congress, who controls trade, who controls foreign commerce, to the president. And that's a potential violation of separation of powers. So I think we have a ways to go here. It's also, interestingly, the first time in American history that if this passes, and I think it will, Congress is authorizing the use of tariffs as a geopolitical weapon to punish secondary countries like India, like Russia, like China, rather than as a standard trade remedy. And that's potentially in the long term very dangerous. And that's why there is remaining concern despite support for Ukraine.
Ginny Shanzano and Sarah Chamberlain, we appreciate your joining us here with our eyes on National Cathedral. Many more members of the cabinet have arrived as we have eyes now on Scott Bessent, RFK Jr., speaking with Benjamin Netanyahu. The Interior Secretary, Doug Burgum, has arrived as well as we approach a full quorum for the cabinet. This memorial service is set to begin in roughly 25 minutes. President Trump is on his way in the motorcade, and we'll have much more on this straight ahead here on Balance of Power. Alongside Kaylee Lyons, I'm Joe Matthew. We'll turn our attention back to the war in Iran and the latest from Ben Jensen at CSIS coming up next, only on Bloomberg.
Speed, analysis, context. This is Boston's best source for news on the FM dial. Bloomberg 92.9. Coming up, the latest market-moving headlines from Bloomberg. First, an update from our partners at ABC News.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. Washington, D.C. is saying a final farewell to longtime South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. A ceremony at first inside the Capitol Rotunda today. Lawmakers and family paying respects ahead of his funeral at the National Cathedral. Here's ABC's Jay O'Brien.
The first of two funerals for the late Senator Lindsey Graham will be here at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. Before that, he'll have a private ceremony at the Rotunda of the United States Capitol. Graham will be eulogized here at the National Cathedral by his close friend, President Donald Trump, who has said that the South Carolina Republican was like family to him.
Ukraine's President Zelensky and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also attending Graham's funeral. Wildfires continue to ravage parts of Spain and France. Hundreds of thousands are fleeing their homes and towns. Here in the U.S., cleanup is underway following a string of tornadoes that tore through the Midwest. Those storms now targeting the Northeast today. This is ABC News.
Today's AM radio is stale and repetitive. Stay with Bloomberg 92.9, your best source for news on the FM dial, and get breaking global news with context. Bloomberg 92.9, faster, smarter, better.
Don't wait for headlines. Watch the news unfold in real time at Bloomberg's New Economy Forum, live from New Delhi, October 13th through the 15th. As global leaders come together to tackle the biggest issues shaping our future, from geopolitics and global trade to technology and the world's new balance of power, you'll have a front row seat to the conversations that matter most. Watch live at BloombergNewEconomy.com. That's BloombergNewEconomy.com.
Hello, I'm Michelle Hussein, and each week on my show, I have one thoughtful conversation that brings the world into sharper focus.
I always trust in the president. He's playing three-dimensional chess.
Every time you say something tough to Mark Zuckerberg, he looks like you killed him. I just never want to talk about Vladimir Putin again.
Every week, one conversation that helps you make sense of the moment. The Michelle Hussein Show from Bloomberg Weekend, wherever you get your podcasts.
Trade your portfolio with the power of prediction market probabilities. With Interactive Brokers, trade prediction markets on election, climate, and economic outcomes, right alongside stocks, options, and bonds. Prediction market prices reflect probability, and correct predictions receive $1 per contract. Plus, earn interest on your position. Prediction contracts are not suitable for all investors. Visit ibkr.com/predictions.
Bloomberg Radio, on demand and in your podcast feed.
On the latest edition of the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast, Meredith Whitney of the Meredith Whitney Group.
Historically, pre-Great Financial Crisis, remember the 90s, 2000s, when bank stocks valuations were trading at all-time highs, they would do transformational deals. Yep. There was massive M&A, massive consolidation. This cycle, since the crisis, once they got out of, effectively regulatory prison, they started buying back shares. They increased dividends to a certain extent, but their favored route was buying back shares. And you would think that makes sense in when the stocks are trading with low valuations. But the banks have still bought back shares at high valuations, close to 3 times. And it's not as if, the brokers used to, you remember the days, they used to buy back shares to offset their stock compensation. They've done that at exponential levels to their stock compensation. So historically, you'd think, at all-time high valuations, price to tangible book, they would do some type of M&A. I think the one bank and one CEO that has the temerity actually do a deal is none other than Jamie Dimon.
So frame an example deal. Example deal.
I think when people thought that Jamie Dimon would retire with their new headquarters, that time came and went. He wants to do something big. And by big, I don't mean State Street, Northern Trust. I think he does something fintech, but major fintech.
Hear the full conversation on the latest edition of the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Plus, listen anytime on the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
It's 1:40 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. Stocks continue to push higher. The Dow and the S&P very much in the green. NASDAQ just turning positive, but the NASDAQ 100 index does remain lower. Tech's getting hit hard today. Right now we got the NASDAQ 100 index down 0.7%. A lot of weakness in the semiconductor names as the rotation out of that group continues. The SOX, the Philadelphia Semiconductor Stock Index, now down by 4.2%. So the S&P up 25, up 0.3. NASDAQ, we'll call that now flat on the day, while the Dow is up 628 points. That is a gain of 1.2%. Dow Industrials being led higher by Sherwin-Williams after earnings. The Bloomberg Mag 7 Index up 0.9%. The 2-year 4.27%. The 10-year 4.60%. And the 30-year at 5.09%. Gold, $4,030 the ounce. Spot gold down 1.2%. Crude a major story today. West Texas Intermediate down 4.1%, back below 80 a barrel. 79.26 on WTI, and Brent below 85, 84.34. We're looking at a drop in Brent crude, down now by 4.6%. Visa is up 1.8%. Visa is eliminating about 2,600 jobs to make the firm more efficient as it competes in an increasingly tough payments industry. Shares of MasterCard, the rival, also based, we've got Visa based in San Francisco. MasterCard shares up 1.7%. Elsewhere in the corporate world, Apple preparing to launch new devices and software for the smart home market, including a hub device with the new Siri AI assistant. Apple shares up today by about 0.7%. Recapping, S&P up 23, up 0.3. NASDAQ now lower, down under 0.1%. Joe and Kaylee, that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right. Charlie Pellet watching the markets for us. Thank you so much. Here in Washington, we're watching the National Cathedral, where memorial services for Senator Lindsey Graham are about to begin. Much of President Trump's cabinet, as well as leaders from the United States Senate, are in attendance. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, just arrived. You also find in the audience heads of state from a number of countries, including Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who, if you are joining us on YouTube or Bloomberg TV, you can see right now is sharing a few words with the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, after meeting earlier today with President Trump at the White House. We did get a readout of that meeting from the Israeli Prime Minister's office, saying that the U.S. and Israel are fully aligned on Iran and that Israel supports whatever path President Trump chooses. And we heard from President Trump earlier today as he did an interview on Fox News about the potential path that lay ahead, a diplomatic one, yes, but another that could potentially target Pickaxe Mountain.
Bibi's telling me that because he wants me to stay involved. I mean, I don't necessarily. We have the finest, because of Space Force, we have the greatest cameras in the world focused on. We know exactly what's going on. But no, I heard Bibi announce that. I said, why didn't you just tell it to me? Why do you have to announce it to the world? I know exactly what's going on at Pickaxe. It's not a big problem. We took out their nuclear sites, and we'll have to take out Pickaxe if we don't make a deal. If we don't make a deal, we'll take it out very easily.
Yet another reference to Pickaxe Mountain, which is something he's been talking about a lot lately, with reports based on Israeli intelligence that thousands of empty centrifuges were hidden below some 400 feet of bedrock beneath Pickaxe Mountain. We'll see if we get that far, because the fact of the matter is we have a continued pause in hostilities. It's been since Friday that the U.S. was trading fire with Iran, and there are questions about what motivated that decision and about what might come next, which is why we're always lucky to have Ben Jensen with us. He's in studio in our Washington bureau, director of the Futures Lab, and a senior fellow for the Defense and Security Department at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. This is the man counting the missiles as they're fired and procured. And Ben, it's great to have you back, as always, here on Bloomberg. There was reporting, something I was talking to Kaylee about earlier. Admiral Brad Cooper was the one who advised the president to cool it, suggesting that this continued strike against the Strait was not effective any longer. Some suggested that that decision was motivated by dwindling supplies of munitions. What do you make of it?
So first, we always have to be careful about what happens behind closed doors, right? It's like bad high school gossip 50% of the time, maybe 51. So if Admiral Cooper did indeed say that, my guess is what he was really trying to indicate to the president is, here are your viable range of military options. And so should you continue to prosecute the war this way, here are the risks the ships will incur because of the interceptors. And I think more importantly, what most people miss is you can't separate the way we fight in Iran from the way we plan to deter China, from the way we plan to deter Russia, because a lot of the component parts for these missiles are common across multiple missiles. And so Admiral Cooper, given his experience, lifetime of service in multiple combatant commands and at sea, isn't just looking at this in his responsibility as CENTCOM commander. He's also making sure he's giving what we call best military advice to the president, so the president weighs the costs of an additional 30, 60 days of a campaign with an unclear political outcome or transition versus the cost and risk it incurs to deter those other possibilities on the horizon.
So is it fair to say that this isn't about inability to continue potentially heavy operations against Iran? It's the opportunity cost of what that pursuit would mean for other theaters.
See, this is why I love Bloomberg. Nowhere else could we talk about terms like opportunity cost. You hit it on the head, right? So it's not, we absolutely have our capabilities to do this. And people forget, in that initial 30-day campaign, there was a period of time where we switched from standoff precision munitions to, we had so decimated their air defenses, we could fly in and drop laser-guided bombs and even GPS-guided munitions. We have got tons of those. So it's not that we can't fight, it's a question of the way you want to fight relative to the military objective. So where a naval voice would be concerned is, if I'm going to escort ships through the Strait and basically make the oil markets happy again, that means I'm going to have a lot of defensive measures in place to counter Iranian coastal defense cruise missiles, to counter those fast boats, to even counter drones. And most of our munitions are sadly still built to be $1 to $4 million interceptors being shot at a 10 to 20,000, even $1 million. So the cost effectiveness of the exchange decreases the efficacy of the operation. And so that's the real opportunity cost they're juggling. Now, what you're hitting on, I think most people miss too, is that there are actually really interesting ways, should military operations commence, because a pause for me always equals planning and getting in position, that I think we're starting to see. So a lot of people missed how important that Saronic Corsair strike was about a week ago. How important it is that we have Task Force 82nd. So the Army is in the Middle East sinking ships, not just the Navy.
That Corsair is the autonomous boat that we saw in action. We talked about that.
That is cost effective. If I shoot 3 to 5 of those at $1 million a piece to hit an Iranian sub in the pier that's worth $100 to $200 million, that's cost effective fighting. That's a different campaign structure. So I actually think people are discounting the creativity of ways we could prosecute this campaign. It's just a question of how quickly can we scale up those unmanned surface vehicles, How many HIMARS or PRISM missiles are we willing to let the Army shoot and even the Marines shoot while we're still building up our industrial base to recapitalize the I think it was 96 hours, 5,200 exquisite munitions used.
Fascinating. So we're talking about Iran so far, and I'm sure we're not done yet, but when you add the cause in Ukraine, this conversation gets to be a little bit more complicated. If interceptor missiles are the commodity, that's exactly what President Zelensky is asking for. I know they have a license to make them. Do they simply need to make their own, or do we have anything to offer?
I think all the above. I mean, sadly, even if we did get that license, it's going to take a year to possibly 2 to 3 to put that in place. This isn't like an IKEA kit where you and I go home, or if hopefully you're better than I am. My IKEA kits usually fail.
That wouldn't work for me either,
Yeah, so the PAC-3 Interceptor IKEA kit is not a build it yourself in 1 day, 1 month, 1 year. And it's going to require infrastructure that's targetable by the Russians. So there's a real cat and mouse game. So it's going to have to be developing additional low-cost interceptors. A lot of this is an intelligence game. So you've heard reporting come out now where Ukrainian commanders will routinely let certain missiles through because they can, through intelligence, tell they're not going to hit something of value or a population center. So that means it's less interceptors to fire at the target. And the real bottleneck here is common for, it doesn't matter if it's a Patriot interceptor, THAAD, a Tomahawk missile, comes down to a few key components. So one, ammonia perchlorate. So it's a weird chemical that allows you to have solid rocket motors or small rocket motors fire. We have only one plant in the U.S. that makes ammonia perchlorate. High explosives. We sadly have only one plant in Tennessee that makes the type of high explosives, turbofans. So the things that are working on a lot of the cruise missiles in particular, we got one plant in Michigan. So it doesn't matter how much money you throw at the problem, there is still a massive industrial backlog and supply chain issue that the Trump administration has recognized, but it's going to take us years to work through that.
And yet they've requested a $1.5 trillion defense budget for the upcoming fiscal year. What you're telling us, Ben, is effectively you could get the money, but you aren't going to be able to spend it very quickly because the industrial base isn't there to back it up.
Absolutely. You will get it in pieces. And to be fair, I think, you know, he doesn't do a lot of media, but Secretary Feinberg has really been the person behind the scenes moving this forward. And that's why you have now not 5, but 7-year deals. And so you have to spend now to get the missiles coming online to scale production. But you're right, it's not going to happen anytime soon, which is why you've seen a separate initiative that's really creative of trying to bankroll cheap munition projects. So you've had 3 announced in like the last year. One was the Air Force's, was like the family of affordable missiles. It almost sounds like a Honda Odyssey for the family to go shoot someone. But it's affordable missiles. There's a new one, the ground-based affordable missile. So $250,000 or less to shoot a long-range munition that's autonomous. And so these contracts are being structured cleverly to enable competition and allow people to then actually see if we can alter the entire incentive structure for the industrial base. So I have a mix of new players and primes to meet the demand signal in the market.
Wow, really interesting. Ukraine entered the theater in an amazing way over the past 24 to 48 hours, actually striking an Iranian
Caspian Sea
commercial vessel in the Caspian Sea. Are those parts that you're talking about what Iran was delivering to Russia?
Maybe. Mostly what Iran can deliver to Russia right now are component parts for Shahed. So we heard the term Shahed. We've talked about it. The Russians are actually getting more effect out of their own version of it called the Geran, and they're making them rocket powered as well. So my guess is the Iranians were sending drone components. I don't know though. But honestly, the more President Trump can do to encourage Zelensky to take those strikes, the more we can do. I mean, why build it when we can buy a Ukrainian one too? They can produce more drones than even they can use in this conflict. So we probably need to start getting more creative more quickly of those weapons pairings matching I'm talking about. Why fire a $5 million missile when a $100,000 drone will do?
Well, and speaking of the cheap drones, do we have a sense, Ben, of how many Iran has left, to what extent they're still capable of building them? Because we have continually heard from President Trump that it's not just their drones, their ballistic missiles, their Navy, all of it has been destroyed, and yet we're still hitting targets, and they still clearly have the capability to at least fire at U.S. assets, even if most of them are intercepted. So what's the actual status of Iran's capability?
So it's so hard to know. I think the president was being genuine, and definitely Admiral Cooper, when they gave the battle damage assessment up front. But that was really striking the conventional Iranian forces and known forces. What Iran has learned from North Korea is to dig, baby, dig. They go underground. So they have entire factories built underground to produce drones, to produce components. And that's what makes it a very huge intelligence challenge. So you never fully are confident you got all of the production sites. So even if you can have an intelligence estimate, say, yes, you destroyed, by definition, destroyed isn't 100%, it can be like 75 to 80. They're still producing more, and because the drones are cheap, they can produce more. We knew even in the initial strikes that we were hitting the launchers, that we never were getting all of the ballistic missiles. What surprised me is the speed with which Iran has recovered the ability to shoot ballistic missiles. So there's definitely some disconnect there that I'm not sure what it is. The scariest one is that Iran also has built its launchers to look like commercial vehicles. So we still believe in the law of armed conflict, so we're not going to shoot something that looks like a school bus, but it turns out it's actually a launcher for a anti-ship cruise missile. So there's a lot of deception involved in this that makes it really difficult to say with confidence what you did destroy. And sadly, Iran doesn't need that much to conduct sea and area denial. They can fire a salvo of 5 to 30 ballistic missiles every month and hundreds of drones every month in intermittent intervals, and it keeps us on a defensive footing. That's the difficulty of breaking that type of defense.
Can I ask before they give us the hook just quickly, what do we need to drop on Pickaxe Mountain to get that far underground? Is that the mother of all bombs, or is this something we haven't seen?
I don't think a Moab would do it, given how deep it is. I think what you're probably going to have to do is fall back to one of the true enduring truth of special forces. The infinite design of an operation is relative force superiority, meaning it's probably going to have to be one of the most sophisticated special forces missions in history.
Do you put people down there?
You'd have to put an outer cordon and basically absorb Iranian counterattacks while you have specialized engineers and special forces teams go down and either detonate and collapse the mountain from within or take the uranium out if it's there.
Amazing.
So maybe not as easy as the president is suggesting it would be if there's no deal. Ben Jensen, super smart stuff. Thank you so much for joining us from the Center for Strategic and International Studies. I'm Kaylee Lyons alongside Joe Matthew. We'll see you for the late edition of Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.
And make sure to subscribe to the Balance of Power podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You're going to want this one in your phone. Hear our full conversation with Ben Jensen. And listen anytime at Bloomberg.com.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Low pressure is headed our way. It'll lead to unsettled weather through the middle part of the work week. We'll have sunshine and perhaps a shower or thunderstorm this afternoon. We're at 80 to 85. There's a risk of showers and thunderstorms tonight and the risk for some heavy downpours at 65 to 70. Showers and thunderstorms tomorrow, 70 to 75. Scattered showers and maybe a thunderstorm Thursday, high 70 to 75. I'm Rob Carolyn with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Shape the conversation on Bloomberg Radio. Tomorrow, listen for wall-to-wall coverage of big tech earnings as Microsoft, Qualcomm, and Meta report.
This is a blowout quarter.
And now, Bloomberg subscribers can submit questions for our experts. Visit Bloomberg.com/AskRadio to send questions to our hosts.
Earnings kicking into high gear.
Your questions on big tech earnings live on Bloomberg Radio. A subscriber exclusive. Visit Bloomberg.com/AskRadio to join the conversation. Then listen at 4 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio.
My name is Whitney Allen, and I'm a widow. My husband, Ryan, died. We never thought we'd ever have to use life insurance, but the unexpected happened. With Ethos, signing up was fast and 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. No medical exams, and you can get up to $3 million worth of coverage. I'm grateful we were prepared.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
Man, I love this place. I've been surfing here since I was a kid. Now, seeing my grandson out on the water, it means everything to me. Watching him and taking in the blue waves, the sea breeze, the blurry horizon.
If you have geographic atrophy, or GA, subtle changes in vision could mean it's progressing toward irreversible vision loss. Izervay is proven to slow GA progression and could help preserve your vision for longer, so you may keep seeing the world around you. Izervay, or avacincaptad pegol, is an eye injection. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may cause blood in the white of the eye, blurred vision, or a temporary increase in eye pressure. Do not drive or use machinery until vision has recovered after an eye injection or exam. Ask your retina specialist how you can slow your GA with Izervay. To learn more, call 1-855-IZERVAY or go to izervay.com. Paid for by Astellas Pharma.
Donald Trump is shaking up the global economy.
I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs,
rewriting the rules, moving markets, even rupturing long-standing alliances. To understand what's happening, listen to Bloomberg's Trumponomics podcast. I'm Stephanie Flanders. Every week, I bring you laser-focused conversations with experts from Wall Street, Washington, and beyond. Listen to new episodes every Wednesday and follow Trumponomics wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Christina Ruffini, inviting you to join us for Bloomberg This Weekend. Catch the show Saturdays and Sundays starting at 7 a.m. Make Bloomberg #1 on that weekend to-do list. Watch and listen on Bloomberg Radio, TV, and the Bloomberg Business app.
This is WBOS, WBOS HD1, Brookline, Boston, WNBP, Newburyport, Bloomberg 92.9. Programming paid for by Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Business Week Daily, reporting from the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead, with insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week Daily with Carol Masser and Tim Stenivek, live on Bloomberg Radio, television, and Bloomberg Originals.
And a very good afternoon, everybody. Yes, indeed, across Bloomberg platforms. It is Bloomberg Business Week Daily on this Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. There is a lot going on. We think it is the right thing to do, though, an honorable thing to just take you, though, to the nation's capital right now. Of course, there is a service getting ready to be underway at the Washington National Cathedral. A live shot right now. For those listening on radio, we are showing Vice President J.D. Vance, the President, of course, Donald Trump, members of his cabinet, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is there as well, obviously gathered there. There are some leaders in town as well. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel is said to be planning to attend. So we will obviously keep a watch on this event and, of course, bring you anything that needs to be brought to your attention.
Yeah, big topic of conversation about the life and legacy of the late senator has been his support as a hawk for some of the international conflicts that the U.S. is currently involved in, his support for the state of Israel, his support for Ukraine, and his support for those wars at a time when in the past couple of years, there have been pressure on Republicans, especially when it comes to the war in Ukraine, not to support the Ukrainian government to the same extent it had been supported.
A lot of big issues, and you wonder who spearheads them going forward. Nonetheless, again, President Trump there and Vice President J.D. Vance at the Washington National Cathedral. All right, folks, we do want to get you, though, to some of the things that we are also focused on this Tuesday, and that is, of course, a Fed meeting getting underway also in the nation's capital. A decision is expected tomorrow. Treasury yields are also down in today's session. This as the U.S. pause strikes in Iran and oil prices fell, playing into, again, that backdrop you were just talking about when it comes to Senator Lindsey Graham there, of course, a service in honor of him.
On the equity side, too, we're watching what's going on with Apple. Shares of Apple were higher earlier, in fact, becoming the second company to hit the $5 trillion mark. We saw a bit of a sell-off in semis earlier today. We saw the Korean Kospi down more than 10% overnight. And yeah, continued pressure. It's kind of the same story over again.
I do feel that. I think Mandeep Singh's going to be like, again, guys, I talked to you about this. We're going to get into that. We're also going to talk a little bit about what we got on the terminal, among the most read, Citadel Securities, talking about a Fed rate hike, unexpectedly perhaps, from the FOMC tomorrow. So we're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about building out the space infrastructure. Got a great guest on that, the CEO of NebEx. And then we're going to get into a little bit of a sports, because, yeah, the World Cup is over, but FIFA's thinking about money and the
Riding
next
that
go
popularity
round.
into raising some money, and it's pretty controversial. So we'll
Yeah.
speak to a couple of folks about that. Randall Williams, Bloomberg News senior reporter, joining us. Also, Vanessa Perdomo Maglione joining us too a little later.
Hey, before we check on markets, something we want to do, bring to your attention, a new feature exclusively for Bloomberg.com subscribers and terminal clients. We'd love to have you participate in our wall-to-wall coverage of some big tech earnings tomorrow. We're talking about Meta Platforms, Qualcomm, and also Microsoft that we're getting. Easy to do. All you have to do is submit questions for our team of analysts and experts to answer live on air. Just head to Bloomberg.com/askradio to send in your questions. Again, exclusive to Bloomberg.com subscribers and terminal clients. Bloomberg.com/askradio, and then just listen to us.
Yeah, check out Bloomberg Radio. You can watch on Bloomberg Originals. You can watch on YouTube. That's starting 4 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow with the Earnings Palooza kicking off, yes, on a Fed day.
We want you to be part of the conversation, so we're looking forward to you sending us in some questions. Hey, let's get to, though, the market trade on this Tuesday. A lot going on. For a wrap-up of what you need to know, here's Charlie Bell.
Hi, thank you very much indeed. I think you guys correctly identified all four major themes for markets. The semiconductor sell-off, we've got the price of oil slumping, and also tech earnings, and of course the Fed this time tomorrow. We'll find out what they do, and we'll be looking forward to the news conference. Kevin Warsh's news conference, his second, coming up 2:30 p.m. Wall Street time. All of that tomorrow. Right to the numbers. We're looking at gains on the S&P 500 index. Interesting day because we started out way lower with the S&P down 30 points, down 0.4%. Right now, looking at a gain of 0.3%. So the S&P up 21. Now it's 74.34, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 594 points, up 1.1%. Sherwin-Williams lifting the Dow today. Meanwhile, the NASDAQ Composite Index down 31, drop there of 0.1%. Weakness in semis. The NASDAQ 100 down 0.8%. The SOX, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange Semiconductor Index, down now by 4.4%. All of this with the VIX holding above 18, the 2-year 4.27%, the 10-year 4.60%, and the 30-year 5.09%. Gold, spot gold down 1.1%, 4,029 the ounce. Crude holding below 80, WTI 79.15 a barrel, down 4.2%. Barrel of Brent 84.15, drop there of 4.8%. Among some of the chip makers today, looking at Micron down 8.9%, Intel down 5.4%, AMD lower by 7.5%. Nvidia, though, bucking the trend, it is up by 0.3%. Carol and Tim, that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right. Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. Hey, two big things I think it's safe to say that investors care a lot about, and that is what we get from the Fed tomorrow and then also the AI trade. We're going to start, though, with tomorrow's Fed decision.
Yeah, I saw this story and I was like, what? And sent it to the whole team. Citadel Securities expects that the Fed will raise interest rates this week. A surprise move, strengthening Chairman Kevin Warsh's credibility in the battle with inflation. Traders, though, Carol, still pricing an unusually high amount of uncertainty about a potential hike this month. Overnight indexed swaps implying an almost 40% chance of a 0.25 percentage point rate increase this week.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, right? 24 hours from now, we will know. Here with what the economy maybe deserves or needs when it comes to Fed actions, we want to bring in Bloomberg TV and Radio international economics and policy correspondent. He is Michael McKee, and he is in the Bloomberg News Washington, D.C. bureau. Mike.
His second home.
It is your second home. Whether you like it or not, it is. Hey, U.S. consumer confidence fell in July. Americans' views about current business conditions and the labor market deteriorating. So let's just start first with how the U.S. economy is doing. How is it?
The U.S. economy is doing quite well, considering everything that we've been through. When you start adding up all the shocks to the economy, we have seen the growth hang in there. It's a little bit lower this quarter, but it has been 2% or a little bit better for a while. We're looking at inflation that in the last month came down, and we can get into that more in terms of what the Fed is going to do. But overall, business spending is still very strong, and consumer spending is hanging in there, a little volatile, but hanging in there. So when you think about everything that has happened over the last couple of years, and even go back to COVID, it is amazing that the U.S. economy is as dynamic as it is.
Why is that? So many I mean, I'm not going to say so many things didn't turn out the way we thought they would, but
pixie dust.
I don't know. Is that what it is? I mean, what is unique about the U.S. economy or the makeup of the U.S. economy that makes it so resilient?
We don't exactly know. I was just speaking with Raphael Bostic, the former Atlanta Fed president, who said that's one of the things that keeps him up. He says he worries that can't continue, but he can't figure out exactly why it's happening, so he can't find ways that it's going to go wrong. Obviously, as long as we are spending a lot of money on building out AI, you're going to have that business spending there. The question is, what happens when the building is done and the AI companies have to show profits? Can they do that? If not, then what happens to the stock market? Then what happens to consumer spending if stocks go way down? And then at some point, does the war start to influence consumer behavior and people get concerned? And that could be through the inflation channel or just overall in the consumer sentiment numbers that we're seeing.
Hey, Mike, Citadel, as we mentioned, expects the Fed to raise rates tomorrow in a surprise move, so strengthening Kevin Warsh's credibility in the battle with inflation. So how often do new Fed chairs kind of come in, want to take some kind of an action to show that they are in charge when it comes to labor and inflation, or just in general early in on their tenure? And is it important for them to do something to say, I'm in control, I've got this kind of thing?
Well, there's a certain amount of importance to saying something like that, or at least making that impression. I don't think any of the previous Fed chairs would say, I came in and I raised rates because it was important to show that I have credibility. But it is a historical fact that Paul Volcker raised rates 2 months into his term, and Ben Bernanke and Jay Powell raised rates a month into their term, Alan Greenspan as well. So it's, except for Janet Yellen, who inherited rates already at zero, there's been a tradition of very early rate moves by Fed chairs. As a matter of fact, the story is that when Alan Greenspan first raised rates, which was at his second meeting, Paul Volcker sent him a note that said, congratulations, you're a real central banker now.
So the question is, does Kevin Warsh become a real central banker tomorrow, like Citadel Securities expects?
It's a really open question. I mean, all meetings are live, as any Fed official will tell you, but this one's perhaps more alive than others because there is an inflation problem out there, and we don't know where we're going with this. We've seen oil prices come back down again after shooting up again. What does the Fed do? Look through it or think that this could devolve into a further inflation problem? And at the same time, you have Kevin Warsh, who is new on the job, but has made it clear that inflation is the enemy number one and needs to be slain. There's also an angle that some people have pointed out that if you raise the short rate, then that eases some fears about inflation getting out of control or being around for too long, and long rates come down, which would bring mortgage rates down. And that would, in theory, make the president happy and take that off the table. So there are a lot of moving parts here. And somebody asked me today, hold or hike? And I said, yes.
Good answer.
Well done, well done. As always, Mike, we're looking forward to your coverage tomorrow on the Fed decision. Bloomberg TV and Radio international economics and policy correspondent, of course, Michael McKee. We mentioned at the top a couple things certainly on our mind. We've been watching the NASDAQ 100 trading near a correction as the sell-off in semiconductor stocks kind of turn a little bit ugly, with investors once again questioning the amount of money that big tech is spending when it comes to AI. And we want to go now to tech.
Yeah, I'm looking at shares of Micron right now, down more than 9% just in today's trade. SanDisk also under pressure. I want to bring in Mandeep Singh. He's our third anchor at Business Week Daily.
My husband yesterday said, "Where's Mandeep?" He did. He talked to me last night. He's like, "Where's Mandeep?" all right, I get it.
The people need their Mandeep.
They do.
My dad says the same thing too, by the way. Mandeep is global head of technology research at Bloomberg Intelligence. The semiconductor trade, got a note from Tom Thornton earlier today. He says he closed out, what did he say? He just said, I covered most of my semi-shorts today, as well as Tesla. The shorts are doing pretty well if they short it at the right time when it comes to some of these memory names.
They are, but when you look at the overall SOX index, it's up more than 100% in the past 3 months. So, when you have moves like this, there's always, points where you will see some consolidation, some sideways movement. And fundamentally, when you look at the earnings that have come so far, and we'll learn a lot more this week, Alphabet pointed to the fact that they're raising the CapEx. So it's a positive overall for the semiconductor complex, and everyone's has talked about how they are supply constrained. So to me, nothing has changed fundamentally, but the market is always looking ahead. They are sniffing for what could go wrong down the line, and that's what you see.
I have to say, Mandeep, prepping for this, I think we were like, oh, shoot, Mandeep's gonna be like, guys, I've answered this question a million times. So when do you, what
Well, maybe tomorrow we'll answer it differently after we hear from other companies, or Thursday too.
Yeah, if there's a CapEx cut, yes.
Well, that's what would possibly say to you, okay, now there is a problem. Is it?
Even if the companies that are reporting don't raise their CapEx, to me, that's a negative. Because as I've explained this before, that because of the memory price increases, every company has to raise their CapEx targets just to account for how much the memory prices have gone up. So if they're not raising their CapEx, that's a sign they're cutting somewhere else. And to me, that in itself is a negative indicator that, oh, they're holding themselves back. Why is that? Is it because they're not able to train the latest model, or there's something more to it?
Which company do you think will be the first to either hold or cut?
I mean, Meta, to me, it looks like the one where they don't still have a cloud model, although the indications are they are going that route.
Yeah, we reported that a few weeks ago.
Yes, and so if they come out and say they already have a customer, they're looking for Anthropic to use their compute, that's a positive sign. I expect them to raise the CapEx for sure in that scenario. And also, there'll be more details around their own model, the Muse model, because with all this open rate news this week and Jensen Huang, coming on X and supporting open weights, it feels like there's a lot of momentum that suddenly there is behind the Chinese open source models, and what that would mean for the overall ecosystem. I think we still have to discern that overall impact.
So the AI circular fears, or circular financing fears, is that legit? Should we be a little concerned about that every time we bring up that diagram and see how interconnected things are?
I think, there is no denying the fact that NVIDIA, with their big balance sheet, is backstopping a lot of this build out. And look, OpenAI doesn't have a balance sheet like Alphabet or Microsoft does. So if OpenAI and Anthropic want to build their own data centers, they need either the hyperscale support or they need NVIDIA's support to say, okay, even though you are buying chips from us, I'm backstopping the use. If nobody is there to consume their LLM capacity, I'm going to backstop that.
Why don't they just tap credit markets or investors to do that? Why do they have to have it?
I mean, the cost of capital for OpenAI would be way more than what Google is paying, which is more like 10%.
Okay.
And the return that Google has to earn is more like 20% in order to say it's a good investment. For an OpenAI, if the bar will be much higher, and so that's why the cost of capital matters here.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm just looking at shares of Micron, down about 30% going back to June 25th.
How much is it up?
In a month. Over that time, it's down.
How much is it up this year?
Over this year, it's up 185%. But the thing is like it's starting to look like the same shape that we saw pre-COVID, going into COVID, and then post-COVID, where things revert to normal.
I mean, the big risk factor, again, with all these investments, there's always one big risk factor. And in the case of memory names, I feel it's Apple, because Apple has so much weight when it comes to consumer devices. And if they are able to qualify a CXMT or one of the Chinese providers, then that's a big, threat to all these memory players, because suddenly you have got a fourth provider, and then you have got the largest consumer hardware company looking to use that.
Is that a real threat to the big three?
I think so.
You think so?
What we have learned so far is because there is such a big supply-demand mismatch, that these companies could allocate a lot more of their wafers towards HBM than the conventional DRAM.
High-performance computing.
The high bandwidth memory.
High bandwidth memory,
yeah.
thank you, yeah.
But DRAM is where they're getting all their pricing lifts.
So what does that mean for like the consumer side of things? Apple's, saying a few months ago that it's raising prices on this stuff.
Yeah.
That's here to stay.
That is here to say as long as they're relying on a Micron and SK Hynix for DRAM. Remember, Apple doesn't need HBM, at least right now. They're not building data centers. They need memory chips for their smartphones, and they just need the DRAM. So DRAM is what has gone up in prices, partly because of all the wafers that are needed for HBM. So there are a lot of moving parts to this, but CXMT is a player that sells DRAM, the commoditized
CXMT?
memory chips.
I was just going to say, we've only got 20 seconds, but increasingly, should we be watching what China's doing very quickly?
Absolutely. On the open rate model side, everyone wrote them off, and suddenly they've got the support of 100+ companies here in the US saying, we want to support Chinese open rate models.
Wild. Thank you for coming back. I know we asked the same questions, but we need you.
Maybe we'll see you tomorrow.
We will, we hope. Mandeep Singh, Global Head of Technology Research of Bloomberg Intelligence. Coming up, the CEO of Nevex.
Get the Bloomberg Business Week newsletter, BW Daily, delivered to your inbox every weekday. It's the power of Business Week in a handy form. Sign up at Bloomberg.com/newsletters. That's Bloomberg.com/newsletters.
Shape the conversation on Bloomberg Radio. Tomorrow, listen for wall-to-wall coverage of big tech earnings as Microsoft, Qualcomm, and Meta report.
This is a blowout quarter.
And now, Bloomberg subscribers can submit questions for our experts. Visit Bloomberg.com/AskRadio to send questions to our hosts.
Earnings kicking into high gear.
Your questions on big tech earnings live on Bloomberg Radio. A subscriber exclusive. Visit Bloomberg.com/AskRadio to join the conversation. Then listen at 4 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio.
Data storage used to be straightforward, but AI has rewritten the rules. The data it needs to thrive is trapped in aging infrastructure. In fact, less than half of enterprises report that their data is AI ready. That makes initiatives stall before they start. Instead of fragmented systems, companies need a unified data platform, one intelligent layer that delivers data at the speed of AI, because good enough isn't good enough in the AI era. Learn more at everpuredata.com.
Is life insurance still on your list from earlier this year? Now is the perfect time to just get it done. A buddy told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I added this to my list this year and got it done. I called SelectQuote and was shocked at how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $18 a month. My wife's also 40, and her $5,000 policy was only $16 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, no medical exam was required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Checking this off my list felt great, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-280-5858 for your free quote today. That's 1-800-280-5858. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-280-5858. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
And Doug. Limu and I created a trick to help you remember that you can customize your car insurance and save with Liberty Mutual. You see, the shirts Limu and I wear are yellow, and yellow is the color of lemons, and lemons grow on trees, and trees provide oxygen, and oxygen helps us breathe, and breathing is how you live, and you can live more life when you save money by customizing your car insurance. I agree, Limu. It's really quite simple. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Partial sunshine continues across southern New England. There is the risk of a shower or a thunderstorm before the afternoon is over. We're 80 to 85. Scattered showers, thunderstorms tonight. There could be some heavy rain at times, 65 to 70. Showers, thunderstorms tomorrow. They could produce heavy rain. Highs only 70 to 75. Leftover showers and storms Thursday, 70 to 75. I'm Rob Carolyn with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Say goodbye to old school AM radio. Listen to Bloomberg 92.9 for speed, analysis, and global context on the biggest stories. Your best source for news on the FM dial. Bloomberg 92.9. Faster, smarter, better.
It's 2:21 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. The Dow, the S&P, they are both higher. We've got NASDAQ and the NASDAQ 100 index. We'll throw in the Russell 2000, all in the red. A sell-off in semis is continuing with the SOX, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange Semiconductor Index, down now by 4.6%. The NASDAQ 100 index down 0.9%. NASDAQ Composite down 0.2. But the S&P 500 index reversing earlier losses, holding on to a 17-point gain now, up by about 0.2%. Dow Industrials up 555, up by 1.1%. Sherwin-Williams leading the Dow higher. The Bloomberg Mag 7 index up by 0.8%. This ahead of earnings from 4 of the 7 members coming up tomorrow and Thursday. The VIX above 18 with a 2-year yielding 4.27%. The 10-year 4.60%, and your 30-year 5.09%. Gold at $4,028 the ounce. Spot gold down 1.2%. West Texas Intermediate crude $78.97 a barrel, slumping 4.4%. Barrel of Brent $83.89. Brent crude right now down by 5%. SpaceX shares bouncing back today after temporarily erasing a fifth of their value from the record-setting debut of Elon Musk's company. SpaceX shares right now, you recall, they did go public at $135. SpaceX shares now at $116. SpaceX today up by 2.8%. Recapping, S&P 500 index up 19. That is a gain of 0.3%. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcast. I'm Charlie Pellet. Tim and Carol, that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, so appreciate it. Hey, folks, we've been watching shares of rocket, satellite, and space-linked companies. They've been under pressure. Names including Intuitive Machines, Rocket Labs, and Redwire, among those losing some ground today. This is happening as Elon Musk's SpaceX shares have dropped as much as 20% below their initial public offering price of $135 a share, so erasing roughly 1/5 of their value. For those who are watching on YouTube and TV and Bloomberg Originals, you can see just after the first couple of days of trading where the stock shot up, we have been essentially in a downward move here. SpaceX shares, though, I should mention, bouncing around today. They're now up a little bit more than 2%, but they were down a lot earlier in the session.
Joining us on set to talk about building out space infrastructure, Tejpal Bhatia is back with us, CEO of Nebex. The company describes itself as the market infrastructure platform for the global space economy. Good to have you back on the program. Last time you were with us, you were CEO of Axiom Space. So a little bit of a job, not a little bit, a lot of a job switch, but you're staying in the space.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just making sure.
Space. You got me.
$30 million seed investment round led by the company formerly known as Google Ventures, GV. Other top-tier venture funds included a banking relationship with JP Morgan. What are you setting out to do at Nebex that you weren't able to do at Axiom?
Yeah, well, thank you first both for having me back. We met a few times. Always loved our conversations. I feel like I remember vividly your story about your father.
Yeah.
And kind of that general connection we all have for space. Really cool to be hearing you talk about various space stocks and us speaking like it's a real economy. It's not a real economy yet, and it's not a real asset class yet.
Why not?
So SpaceX, by far, this largest IPO, very exciting. It's doing what public stocks do, and they've created a ton of value. A question I would ask is, why is there no remotely close second place? Right? Every other sector, I know the previous guest was talking about AI, right? 20 years ago, it might have been search or cloud or mobile. In every major revolution where there is huge value created, there's multiple massive winners, right? You know, look at the big four, you know, the FANG stocks we used to talk about a while ago. There's always other ones with space.
But the moat to launching a rocket and then landing it on a barge, which, you know, 7 years ago was a big deal, but nowadays happens so frequently we don't even necessarily show it. That's a pretty big moat.
Pretty big moat, absolutely. But again, why is there only one that's been doing it? And I think this is where Nebex comes in. We have a belief that this is a major transformation for industry and civilization. And Nebex is building what we call the commercial rails to go on the physical rails. The physical rails being those rockets that go up and down. And we've seen this over and over again. We've seen it particularly in New York quite a bit. When the railroads were built, New York to California, three gentlemen in Buffalo, New York, Butterfield, Wells, and Fargo, created American Express to guarantee gold going from New York to California. And when they realized that they're guaranteeing it from robbers and gangs like Jesse James, they realized they don't actually have to send the gold. And that was American Express and traveler's checks. JP Morgan, 1871, standardizes the shipping container. The first letters of credit between global banks guaranteeing trade. So we've seen this time and time again, but in space, everyone has been focused on the hardware. Everyone has been focused on the physical infrastructure. And when we talk about infrastructure, a launch a day is infrastructure. Launching giant rockets and landing on a barge exactly on their X logo, that's incredible infrastructure. Tens of thousands of satellites in orbit, that's infrastructure. Every other company, though, is putting up demos. So we feel there's this wide open space right now for a company to bring the rest of the economy along. Once those rails are set, going up and down, what's the next traveler's check? What's the next shipping container? What's the next trading platform that allows the economy to scale the way every other industry has?
So how do we get there? Because the other thing I would say with space is you want to make sure there aren't problems. It's complicated. It's difficult. I always think about, you mentioned my dad, like he would have been blown away by the idea that you could actually bring a rocket back and make it land, because that's not the case when he was doing it. So I'm just like, there are regulations to make sure things are safe and secure. Lives certainly at stake, and this concept of kind of building out space as a place for people to maybe live or data centers to exist. What does it take in terms of international cooperation among entities, companies, and then the financial entities?
Yeah, and again, we've seen this in other industries, aviation, right? From the Wright brothers to Lindbergh, going from New York again to Paris. We saw within a few years air shows everywhere, right? The wars having multiple air forces, and then within 100 years, that industry completely transforming life. We can't imagine life without airplanes now. The interesting thing about space, and I discovered this, in my previous role, I'm new to the industry. I worked at Google 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's been my childhood dream to send astronauts to space. I got my shot, I took it, I was really good at it. Sent 16 astronauts to space, 12 sovereign nations, billions of dollars of revenue, again, all as an outsider. And as special as I believe I am, as special my parents think I am, there's 8 billion.
Thank God for parents.
There are 8 billion special people in the world. Why is nobody else cracking this code? And what I realized is, I think we uncovered right under our nose a gold mine, which is literally the only industry left on the planet that hasn't been touched by modern finance. And there's a geopolitical history behind this. Back in your father's time, the space race, John F. Kennedy, we go to the moon, we do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. I think we all get goosebumps when we think about it. That's kind of our origin story, space in the United States. At that exact same time, students in schools were being trained to get under their desks in case there was a nuclear attack. It was an arms race. And there was two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. And everything came out of that. And originally, the first collaboration between those two space superpowers was what eventually became the International Space Station. And to remove complexity and politics from it, they decided no money will exchange hands. And it worked. And it maintained peace and diplomacy even through the current conflict. But now with a company like SpaceX and Starlink and Starship, we need financial infrastructure to actually modernize the industry.
I want to go back to, and Tej, we only have about 4 minutes or so left, so I want to kind of get to some of what you actually kind of plan to do in the deals as this platform gets up and running. But I mean, I always believe that if there's money to be made, money will go there. And you started off saying, why aren't there larger competitors to SpaceX?
Yep.
So if the money hasn't gone there already, maybe it hasn't gone there for good reason.
Yep.
And maybe you need to have it concentrated in one hands, or government still being very much controlling a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I think you've nailed it. I don't think is a cause and effect. If you follow the dollars, it is a massive market today. I know last time I was here, we were talking about orbital data centers. We've spoken about pharmaceuticals, in-space manufacturing. We saw in SpaceX's IPO the $28 trillion TAM. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's
Totally
hope that
addressable
happens.
market.
Yeah, total addressable market.
Totally realistic?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Why not? But that's vision. We can look at exact numbers in 2026. We can follow the dollars, which is what we all should be doing, and every dollar goes back to a government budget. The beauty of government budgets is they were appropriated 5 years ago. The beauty of government budgets is all publicly available data. The exact dollar amount that's going to be transacted in 2026 is $138 billion. It's actually $137.4 billion for the weirdos who've checked every single RFP and tender and know where every dollar is going. So we know that that's a massive market now. So there's no guesswork there.
Yeah.
It's all coming from government budgets. So the reason it hasn't actually accelerated is because it's been a sovereign to sovereign business, and now with commercial supply it's changing.
We're speaking with Tejpal Bhatia, the CEO of Nebex. So who are your first customers going to be at Nebex?
So Nebex is a financial exchange for cross-border space transactions. When governments need to buy commercial supply from another country, it gets very complicated. And basically that's every single space transaction. If you want to get off the ground and
Export
you want to
restrictions, there's lots of things that go on.
Exactly. Import, export, ITAR, EAR in the case of the United States,
Yeah.
Taxes, tariffs, politics,
Right.
policy.
Procurement rules.
For many European countries, money cannot actually leave their borders. And they invoke what they call the barter system. There's no real barter system, but it's usually some sort of value in kind bilateral trade that agencies will do. So there's no trusted counterparty. There's no neutral central clearing settlement system for these deals, which forces every deal to be bilateral and sequential. There's no parallel processing in this. So when companies are going after government contracts, they win the contract, they get their payment, they hit the next milestone.
How do you take the politics out, though, in a world where geopolitics does determine who you sell what to? And especially, it's heightened in terms of the sensitivity, whether it's natural resources, whether it's weapons. Like, how do you get around that? And forgive us, we only have about 45 seconds.
I can answer in 15 seconds. So 5 years ago, when I was working at Google, I'd never spoken to a world leader before. Sending 16 astronauts to space, you're dealing with presidents and prime ministers. I don't even pretend to say I understand politics, but we have the most efficient vehicle as humans to solve that, and that's the markets. So capital markets, and you mentioned the relationship with JP Morgan. What's happened is in this time warp that has become space, the space business is stuck in 1969. This building is a couple of $1 billion. Right, to the bankers who finance this get paid on transaction fees, assets under management. The atomic unit for space is a launch, which is about $100 million. You can't get the time of day of any Wall Street banker to come finance that, even if it's a bankable deal. So doing it at scale, bringing the capital markets in, makes it a money problem, not a politics problem.
We know this will continue, this conversation. Glad to have you back. Come back sooner. Let's not wait a year or so. Tejpal Bhatia, he is CEO of Nebex, joining us right here in studio. All right, folks, as we head to a break, we do want to take you to the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and the National Cathedral. President Trump currently giving the eulogy for Senator Lindsey Graham, the service and funeral being heard. As we head to a break, you can follow this. Just head to LiveGo. You're listening and watching Bloomberg.
Faster, smarter, better. This is Boston's best source for news on the FM dial. Bloomberg 92.9. Coming up, the latest market-moving headlines from Bloomberg. First, an update from our partners at ABC News.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. At the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. this hour, funeral services underway for the late Senator Lindsey Graham. The longtime GOP lawmaker from South Carolina died at the age of 71 earlier this month. President Trump delivering the eulogy, calling Graham a member of the family and also a critical part of the Republican Party.
For more than 30 years, nothing of consequence happened in this Capitol without Lindsey Graham knowing about it. Nothing of significance happened anywhere in the world without Lindsey Graham having a view on it.
Earlier at a ceremony at the Capitol Rotunda, Republican Senate Leader John Thune says he'll remember Graham for his friendship and humor. Consumer confidence slid this month with U.S. and Iran hostilities fueling concerns over gas prices and stubborn inflation. The war with Iran now entering its 6th month, and officials in Japan assessing the damage following a powerful 6.8 magnitude earthquake today. This is ABC News.
The news doesn't stop on the weekends, and now neither do we. This is David Gura. Join us on Bloomberg This Weekend. Watch and listen to the news show Saturdays and Sundays starting at 7 a.m. on Bloomberg Radio, TV, and the Bloomberg Business app.
Bloomberg Green returns to New York during Climate Week on September 22nd and 23rd, bringing together industry leaders, policymakers, and climate innovators to explore what's next in the transition to a more resilient and future-ready world. Powered by Bloomberg's editorial coverage and data-driven insights, we'll examine how climate intersects with the forces shaping our future, from technology and the economy to policy and community. Learn more at BloombergLive.com/green-NY-radio.
Join us for Bloomberg Power Players on September 10th in New York. Set against the backdrop of the U.S. Open Tennis Championships, Bloomberg convenes the leaders shaping the future of sports business. From athletes and team owners to commissioners and investors, hear the market-moving conversations driving the multi-trillion-dollar sports economy. Register now at BloombergLive.com/PowerPlayersRadio. That's BloombergLive.com/PowerPlayersRadio.
You research your investments, you analyze markets, but have you researched your broker? For the past 3 years, Interactive Brokers' individual clients averaged a 24.3% annual return, beating the S&P 500. Lower costs, competitive rates, and access to 170-plus global markets help investors keep more of what they earn. The broker you choose matters. Interactive Brokers, member SIPC. Learn more at ibkr.com/performance.
Bloomberg Radio, on demand and in your podcast feed.
On the latest Masters in Business podcast, my conversation with Lori Heinel, Global Chief Investment Officer at State Street, managing $5.7 trillion.
At the margin, we might favor large cap or favor Europe or favor emerging markets at different points in time based on relative value trading. But we do think that it's incredibly difficult to time those inflection points perfectly. And as you noted, coming into this year, you still had a lot of momentum and flows into the things that had done well in the past, including some of those large cap names that you mentioned. I'm kind of a traditionalist in that way. I do believe you want to be diversified and have exposures to multiple places. But I do think that this AI enthusiasm, I believe in it in terms of a technology. But when you look at the massive amount of spending that is now being undertaken by some of these companies, they've gone from leveraging balance sheet cash to make those investments to now accessing fixed income markets in a massive way, and even in some cases issuing equities. So you do have to sort of wonder whether that vein alone is going to be where the money is going to be made going forward. I'm not saying that they can't still generate good earnings, but there are plenty of other places. If you think about energy, if you think about utilities, you think about all the ecosystem required to enable that AI transformation. And then perhaps most importantly, the real economy and how sectors like finance or healthcare or other things are going to benefit from these technologies. I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg.
Hear the full conversation on the latest edition of the Masters in Business podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Plus, listen anytime on the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
It's 2:40 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. The Dow higher, the S&P higher, NASDAQ and the NASDAQ 100 index both declining. Bottom line, those stocks are higher, oil is moving lower, and chips are selling off. The SOX, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange Semiconductor Index, now down 4.6%. The NASDAQ 100 index down 0.9%. The NASDAQ Composite Index down 0.2%. S&P keeping it all in context, up 0.2% 1% higher now by 17 points. And the Dow is up 560 points on the Dow, a gain there of 1.1%. Dow Industrials getting a lift from earnings from Sherwin-Williams. The Bloomberg Mag 7 index up 0.6%. We will be hearing from 4 out of the 7 members in the next 2 days. Right now, the VIX is just above 18, and a 2-year is yielding 4.27%, while the 10-year is yielding 4.60%. Spot gold down $52 the ounce to $4,023. The precious metal down 1.3%. West Texas Intermediate crude holding below 80, $79.23 a barrel. It is down 4.1%. Barrel of Brent, 84 even, down now by 4.9%. Earnings news: Coca-Cola has raised its full-year outlook, bolstered by demand last quarter, while it served as a major sponsor of the FIFA World Cup. And today we are looking at Coca-Cola shares advancing by 4.4% now. Rival PepsiCo, it is trading higher as well, up by 1.8%. Briefly, United Parcel Service boosted its sales guidance for the year to about $91.2 billion, up from a prior forecast of $89.7 billion. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcast. I'm Charlie Pellet. Carol and Tim, that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, man, the fans are barely back home. Some of them maybe are still playing around in some of these great cities.
I think the merch is still selling.
It is. I see it in the city. I definitely do.
I saw some Spain jerseys yesterday on my way home.
Did you?
And my daughter is wearing Argentina today.
See?
Yeah.
So it's still around us. I mean, the World Cup is still definitely a newsmaker, no doubt about it. Charlie just talked about Coca-Cola raising its full-year outlook, bolstered by demand last quarter, while it served as a major sponsor of the FIFA World Cup.
And then there's this: FIFA working on a plan to raise as much as $4.2 billion from external investors. This, according to a person familiar with the matter, as football's governing body opens itself to outside investment for the first time. I did not even know
I just
that one
assumed.
could perhaps invest in football's governing body. It's pretty controversial, to be
Are you going
fair.
to sell your crypto and go into it?
I am staying
He doesn't
put
have any
right
crypto.
here.
I don't think he does.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well,
no crypto.
With
No
more
crypto.
on all of this and the look at the world of sports, Vanessa Perdomo Maglione is with us. She is Bloomberg News Business of Sports reporter, sports business reporter, I should say. She's also co-host of the Business of Sports podcast. She's here in studio. And also with us is Randall Williams. He's another co-host of the Business of Sports podcast, and he is Bloomberg News senior reporter. Guys, thank you so much. Randall, you're in D.C. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But I want to get to what's going on here. FIFA pitching to outside investors. Is this a big deal, Vanessa? Give us some context. I think we just kind of assumed outside investors were involved, but I guess not.
Oh, it's really interesting. No, it's a massive deal. And this is just...
I assume the opposite.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought it was like a governing body that was supported by its members. And
Which it is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly what FIFA is supposed to be. It's a nonprofit. FIFA is a nonprofit. It's a governing body. They're supposed to support their 211 members. And
I'm just so
basically
used to Americanized sports, and there's so much money in
Well,
there.
this is exactly what plays into it, though, Carol, right?
Yeah.
They just had their World Cup in the U.S. Gianni Infantino has a great relationship with President Trump, and one of the investors behind this is Joshua Kushner, who is, closely related to the Trump administration in a way. So it's...
Well, he's the brother of Jared. Let's
He's
just
the
be
brother
honest.
of Jared Kushner, right? Exactly.
Which is the son-in-law of the president.
Right, exactly. So I think what we're seeing here is right after they have the World Cup in the U.S., they then have this idea to, which they did note beforehand, have been in the works a little bit, but they have this idea to have a for-profit part of FIFA.
I don't know, Randall. Come on in here, because there is some precedent to this.
Money in sports?
With the
How could that
PGA.
happen?
I read, thanks to Giles Turner's story, who covered this earlier today, but it does seem a little strange that you would have outside investment coming into a governing body, especially, when there are some asterisks around what you can then do with that stake of FIFA.
Exactly. I mean, what does Kushner and Thrive get out of this? And what do some of the outside investors get out of this? If this is a for-profit arm and there is a non-profit body, how do those things coincide with each other? And who's getting paid? We don't really understand as far as, where's this money going to go? A lot of times that, private equity and venture firms and funds are investing into teams. They're doing it for a purpose. They're doing it to, help with stadium issues. They're doing it to help with when owners have billionaires and taxes and different things like that. They're helping with things that are alleviating stress for billionaires. This one is sort of like question mark, question mark, question mark. Why is a nonprofit raising billions of dollars?
So what does FIFA say, Randall?
FIFA will tell you that this is for the good of the sport. This is going to enhance football around the globe, and they're looking forward to hosting the 2027 Women's World Cup and the 2030 Men's World Cup.
Okay, that's what FIFA says. UEFA is not so happy about this, Vanessa. Giles Turner writing on the Bloomberg Terminal just in the last 20 minutes or so that UEFA is considering a boycott of FIFA events, including the World Cup and the Club World Cup, in response to FIFA's proposals to seek private investment. Do you think, Vanessa, that this could be the type of thing that doesn't happen as a result of pushback?
I think that we have seen pushback like this before on, in certain things, and FIFA has proposed, ideas like this, but not this exact idea before, but they have proposed things before that the governing bodies have said no to. I mean, the 211 members associations have to say yes in order for this to happen, right? And then all of these other entities like UEFA and CONCACAF also would probably need to be on board. They're not necessarily the members, so it's different. But I think that UEFA's strong feelings about it could potentially cause
by the way, the European Football Body.
European Football Association, right? And they came out and said this absolutely crosses the line. No football governing body should be doing this, and we'll see where it lies. But I think that FIFA, they're the ones who came out with this statement, and they're clearly very far along in
Randall,
this
come
discussion.
on in. Yeah.
And I just added, you have to remember, the members that are in Europe. It's not just anybody. It's France, it's England, it's Portugal. It's all of those countries that are considered superpowers and have some of the most popular players in the world. And so this is a Cold War brewing. And we're going to find out in many months and maybe years to come if it's going to boil over. And what is the result? We haven't seen anything quite like this in the global sport of football, probably since the Super League, which was going to combine a bunch of clubs around the world and try to, make the competition as high as it possibly could be. And that evidently was gone away with. And so this is something similar, but at a higher level. Imagine the Justice League versus the Avengers versus you throw another team in there that you all like. And this is what this is in terms of football.
FIFA has said the proposed company, FIFA Forward Enterprise, would remain under its control. Investors permitted to acquire only minority, non-controlling stakes. The venture could raise as much as $4.2 billion. And FIFA has said it could substantially increase development funding for its 211 member association, supporting infrastructure, coaching, grassroots programs, and women's football. Vanessa, do they need the money?
Well, I mean, they just made $15 billion from the 2026 World Cup, so I don't.
Everything was sponsored.
So I don't think that they necessarily need the money, but they'll always say, like you just said there, Carol, they'll always say this is to then support the further, growth of these of the member associations.
They didn't sponsor the hydration breaks, right?
Are you joking?
They sure did, and they got $500 million.
That was Powerade.
I'm just kidding.
They got $500 million. I mean, I think one of the things that we'll see here is how it. Next year is the 2027 Women's World Cup, which will have 48 teams again competing with 104 matches, which on the women's side, this investment actually could probably use more investment for these smaller countries.
Okay.
Randall, I heard you jumping in there with some sponsorship commentary.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I do think that if the World Cup is going to expand to eventually to 64 teams, then what could happen is that these early round games matter less. That's going to upset, the nations that are superpowers. That's England, that's France, that's Argentina, that's Brazil, because they do have to play teams that might not have qualified in previous tournaments. And so if FIFA does by their word and they say that this money is going to go to those programs and it's going to develop talent, that we could see global superstars from Cape Verde someday at a younger rate than what we saw this year, where the goalkeeper was over 40. And so with that in mind, it sounds good. But the question is, does the world of football trust it? And I'm not so sure about that.
Money in sports.
I love this.
Never thought it would have kind of gone to the level it is here in the U.S., but here we are, right? So
we're the ones who made it that way.
Yeah. Well said, well said. Vanessa Perdomo-Maglione, Bloomberg News sports business reporter, co-host of the Business of Sports podcast, along with Randall Williams, who is also Bloomberg News senior reporter. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Get the latest news whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. Top stories from our global team of reporters at the click of a button. Get Bloomberg News Now on the Bloomberg Business app, Bloomberg.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Tomorrow, the Fed decides.
This committee will deliver price stability.
Economists expect no change in rates. But will there be dissents? And what will Fed Chair Warsh say this time?
The bias is still to not hike rates if they can.
Full coverage on a special edition of Bloomberg Surveillance.
Is forward guidance just done?
The Fed rate decision and Warsh press conference.
This is a changed Federal Reserve, a switch in mentality.
Tomorrow, starting at 1:30 on Bloomberg 92.9, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app.
Well, it's official. My friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data. And because they're my friends, they trust me. As for the rest of you, well, Pure Talk understands that even though you might like me, you're not just going to take my word for it, nor should you. For that reason, and for a very limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited plan that normally sells for $65 a month. Think of it like a test drive, a super simple way to save $150 while you kick the tires on Pure Talk's blazing fast network, and a fine way to see for yourself why I switched from big wireless, along with a few 100,000 of my closest friends. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and be connected to Pure Talk's friendly U.S. customer service team. Again, dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and let the savings begin.
Stay connected with Bloomberg wherever you are with Bloomberg Podcasts. On the Michelle Hussein Show, author Karen Howe on why the AI industry is a reckless race for global domination. On Next Africa, how USAID cuts caused floods in Kenya. And on Everybody's Business, why OpenAI, Anthropic, and Palantir are suddenly selling apparel instead of just algorithms. Listen to Bloomberg Podcasts on Apple, Spotify, the Bloomberg Business app, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Bloomberg Podcasts. Context changes everything.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Partial sun, but there's the potential for some showers and thunderstorms before the afternoon is over. 80 to 85. Low pressure will bring us showers and thunderstorms tonight and possibly some heavy rain at 65 to 70. Showers and thunderstorms could produce heavy downpours tomorrow. Highs are 70 to 75. Few showers and maybe a thunderstorm Thursday, 70 to 75. I'm Rob Carolyn with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 92.9.
Why wade through boring and irrelevant topics on AM radio when you can listen to Bloomberg 92.9 FM for stories that matter? Breaking global news and the context you need. Bloomberg 92.9. Faster, smarter, better.
This is Bloomberg Business Week Daily with Carol Masser and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio and Television.
All right, everybody, we are headed to the last hour of trading, getting into it just in a few minutes. We got a lot coming up still on Bloomberg Business Week Daily. In the meantime, quick update for you on the trade on this Tuesday. Remember, the Fed kicked off its 2-day meeting, the FOMC specifically, second meeting chaired by the new incoming Fed chair, Kevin Warsh. We'll get a decision tomorrow. So some interesting chatter, if you will, on the Bloomberg about Citadel saying maybe we'll get that a surprise rate increase.
What did Mike McKee say? He was asked if the Fed would hold or raise rates tomorrow, and Mike replied, yes.
Exactly. It's an interesting time to be. So we'll see what we get, and looking forward to that press conference. In the meantime, on this Tuesday, you are looking at an S&P little change, just up about 22 points. That amounts to about 0.3% higher in percentage terms. Dow's up more than 600 points, up more than 1%. NASDAQ 100, though, Tim, under pressure.
Yeah, what about the chip stocks? Those are under pressure. The stock's down 4.5%. 3 names are higher in there: NVIDIA, Qorvo, and Skyworks. Everything else, the other 27 names in the stocks, are lower today. Micron down 9%. ARM Holdings down 8%. AMAT down 8%. And AMD down 8%.
Yeah, some big declines. All right, let's get to some movers. Stocks on the move today. I'm Carol Masser along with Tim Stanovec. With us is Bloomberg TV Markets correspondent Nora Melinda. She's in studio. Let's kick it off with some well-known brands, actually. JetBlue. The stock
a lot of
you're
consumer-facing ones. Ticker JBLU. Now, the stock is higher by about 9.5% right now as we speak. This comes after the company reaffirmed its full-year guidance and essentially said that it will reach positive cash flow next year. Now, this, of course, buoying the stock higher. This we did see a lot of strong demand for the company. I'm curious. I don't know if you guys ride or fly JetBlue often. I haven't flown it super often, but
we flew it about a year ago. I can speak for Carol. We flew it a year ago.
East Coast, West Coast trips. Yeah.
Okay, you think of it a bit more as a budget airline?
I've never thought of it
No,
as
it has
a
no
budget.
identity. That's the problem.
Yeah,
That's the challenge.
Right.
It used to be like an upscale budget airline, but anyway, this is the whole issue with JetBlue.
Exactly, as it's trying to
But they have a very premium product with Mint.
That's very true. Well, we also did see that, of course, because of the bankruptcy of Spirit Airlines, JetBlue is actually going to be also expanding its operations